Chapter 481. Hiss, the crowd gasped. Such an exaggerated sword energy. If someone was touched by it, they would lose half of their body. If Wang Chongyang came back to life, even Zhang Sanfeng might not be able to resist it. Xu expression also changed greatly. Originally, he was going to greet her politely, but he didn't expect a Qing to attack without warning. Seeing that he was about to be hit by the sword Qi, Xu quickly rolled away. A Qing was still smiling. He flicked his wrist, and the sword energy seemed to have eyes. It followed Su Zhu like a shadow. Xu's expression was gloomy as he firmly planted his feet on the arena. After taking a deep breath, his clothes began to flutter. And Floral is almost equal to, is identical to. P. One of the three great techniques of the Shaolin Temple, the diamond body. The sharp-eyed people below the arena exclaimed. Song Qing secretly shook his head. He could be said to be the most familiar with the Shaolin Temple's invincible Vajra divine art, apart from the Shaolin disciples. He had fought with the Vajra sect master and Master Xuanqing before, and both of them had practiced invincible Vajra divine art to the great accomplishment stage. Xu did not look like he had mastered the diamond body divine technique, and Song Qing could feel that the air around Xu was rushing into his body. Xu was like a vortex. This martial art, Song Qing was even more confused. Qing saw that Xu was not dodging and seemed to want to take her sword energy head-on. She frowned and quickly weakened the sword energy. After all, Xu was not a wolf that came to steal sheep in winter. She didn't want him to bleed on the spot. The cyan sword energy finally hit Xu. However, when the sword energy touched Xu's body, it melted like ice and snow. Qing was surprised and waved her bamboo stick. The sword energy flew out and stabbed toward Xu like a real sword. Su Zhu crossed his arms in front of him, and an invisible wave of true qi appeared around him. After the green sword qi collided with this invisible wall, it was as if it had fallen into a bloody mouth. It melted at a speed visible to the naked eye and finally disappeared into thin air. The audience was completely silent. When they saw Xu preparing to take that terrifying sword energy head-on, they thought that he would be seriously injured even if he didn't die. Who would have thought that he would be able to easily deal with it? Everyone looked at the plain-looking little monk on the stage with complicated expressions. This little monk was really unfathomable. Shaolin was indeed worthy of being the #1 sect in the world. There were really crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Song Qing was also shocked. Even he had to avoid Qing's sword energy. How did Xu do it? Song Qing began to think about the martial arts that Xu might have. Suddenly, he thought, is it the northern dark qi? The nature of dark north's Zhen qi absorbing other people's internal energy was indeed possible. After all, sword qi was also a type of internal energy. A trace of red appeared on Su Zhu's face. Although he had successfully absorbed Qing's sword qi, Qing's innate sword qi was not something ordinary inner force could compare to. He could feel his tendons and veins being injured. I can't fight head-on like this anymore, this thought appeared in Xu mind. While Qing was still in a daze, he closed in on her. With the sword energy she had displayed, fighting her from a distance would only put him in a passive position. Xu decided to drag her into close combat so that he could fully display the advantage of the 72 ultimate Shaolin techniques. Seeing Xu approach, Qing had no intention of dodging. Instead, she looked at him with interest and asked, "Little monk, what did you do just now?" As Qing spoke, she pointed at Xu with the bamboo stick in her hand. Su Zhu was shocked. Qing had casually waved his hand, but the bamboo stick had stabbed out from an incredible angle. Su Zhu wanted to dodge, but the bamboo stick seemed to have a mind of its own. Its head trembled slightly, and it moved in a subtle arc. It was still waiting for him to meet it. Although the bamboo stick in front of him seemed to be an ordinary thin bamboo, Xu did not dare to be careless. After all, the terrifying sword qi just now came from this stick. Xu used his hand as a knife, and there was visible true qi flowing on the edge of his palm. He directly cut Qing's bamboo stick. With a crisp sound, Qing was shocked to find that her bamboo stick was broken in half. The broken part seemed to have been cut by a sharp blade, and there were faint traces of burning. "Mother, this little monk's hand knife is very powerful." "What is it?" Guofu's mouth was wide open, as if she could not believe her eyes. "It should be one of the 72 unique skills of the Shaolin Temple, the wood-burning saber technique." Huang Rong was very knowledgeable. The reason why she could see the true qi flowing on the edge of Shuju's palm was because the wood-burning saber technique was extremely young. The hot true qi caused the air around the palm to boil, and the light was naturally distorted. This little master can use the wood-burning saber technique with his bare hands. It is really... For a moment, Huang Rong could not find any words to express the shock in her heart. After mastering the Shaolin Temple's wood-burning saber technique, one could hack a piece of dry wood 81 times. The blade of the saber did not damage the wood at all, but the heat emitted from the saber could ignite the wood and start a fire, hence the name. Xiaofeng's teacher, Master Xianku, was good at this technique. However, the wood-burning saber technique was usually performed with the Buddhist commandment blade, but Shuju was able to use it with his bare hands. No wonder Huang Rong was so shocked. Song Qing frowned slightly. Although the wood-burning saber technique of the Shaolin Temple was magical, its power was limited. How could it cut Qing's bamboo stick? However, what was the feature of Shuju's move? It was indeed the wood-burning saber technique. Song Qing's eyes suddenly lit up. He remembered a scene in the original work of demigods and semi-devils. In the Jinlong chess game, a monk of the Shaolin Temple was hit by Yu Tanji's poisonous palm. Shuju used Wu Yazi's 70 years of dark north genuine qi to cut a wound under the monk's ribs. His genuine qi went straight through the monk's meridians and let the poison out. Just now, Shuju must have used the dark north genuine qi to cut the wood-burning saber technique. The power of the wood-burning saber technique was more than 10 times stronger than the ordinary wood-burning saber technique. Therefore, Qing was caught off guard and suffered a big loss. When the people of the Shaolin Temple were discussing how to deal with Shuju, they were all afraid of Qing's congenital sword qi. Now that Shuju had successfully cut Qing's weapon, he could not help but show a trace of joy on his face. He raised his other hand and chopped again. Qing glanced at the remaining half of the bamboo stick. He curled his lips and casually threw it away. Seeing Shuju's chopping hand, Qing raised his hand and sent out his sword qi. When the sword qi and the chopping hand touched, both of them trembled and separated. Shuju felt that his qi and blood were a little turbulent and his chest was stuffy. Qing did not feel much better. After all, the sword qi suddenly disappeared. It was like punching the air, which was extremely uncomfortable. Both of them were afraid of each other, so they were in a stalemate. Chapter 482. This was probably the most exciting duel so far in the Golden Snake Convention. The materialization of sword qi and the use of one's hand as a saber. These skills that only existed in legends were actually seen with their own eyes. The heroes of Jianghu exclaimed in delight. Looking at the plain-looking little monk in the field, Song Qingshu frowned. It seems that he was hiding his strength when he fought with Morong Fu. But thinking about it, the Shaolin 72 consummate skills that was driven by the little non-phase technique could only scare ordinary experts, but against a top expert like Qing, it was really asking to be humiliated. Therefore, Suju immediately used his trump card, Dark North Divine Art. Seeing the various wonders of Dark North Divine Art, Song Qingshu secretly smacked his lips. Suju's Dark North Divine Art should be the complete version, far better than Duan Yu's. Moreover, it seems to be much stronger than Ren Wuxing's Absorbing Stars. This Suju is obviously a Shaolin disciple, but he has the Carefree Sex Divine Art. Who taught him? Could it be the one in the Scripture Pavilion? Suju is proficient in the little non-phase technique in Dark North Divine Art. Did he learn Tianshan, Six Yang Palm, Tianshan Plum Breaking Hand, Life and Death Talisman? These top skills, Qing may be in danger. Tianshan's Six Yang Palm and Tianshan plum breaking hand, may be amazing, but Ah Ching's sword energy is so oppressive that Su Zhu can't even get close to her. Thus, these two martial arts are useless. On the other hand, Life and Death Talisman is a long-range skill that can't be guarded against. It also has its own control characteristics. If Ah Ching is hit, wouldn't this super expert have to listen to the Shaolin Temple? After several contacts with the Shaolin Temple, Song Qing-shu did not feel that the monks of the Shaolin Temple were the kind of compassionate people that he had imagined. On the contrary, the entire Shaolin Temple seemed to have a kind of ambition for this chaotic world. Thinking of his bad relationship with the Shaolin Temple, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but secretly pinch a few small stones in his hand. If Ah Ching really doesn't guard against it, he will ignore the rules of the convention and help her block those thin ice flakes. While the experts below the stage were pondering who would have the last laugh, the two people on the stage were not idle either. Su Zhu knew that when he broke Ah Ching's weapon with his hand, it seemed like he had the upper hand. However, using the Dark North Divine art consumed a lot of internal force, while Ah Ching's sword energy could be easily used. If the stalemate continued, he would lose without a doubt. Xu Zhu whined, as if he had guessed what Xu Zhu was thinking. Xian Cheng, who was under the arena, waved his robe, and a jar of liquor shot toward Xu Zhu's palm like a water arrow. This monk has such a deep inner strength. Xian Cheng's move caused another round of exclamations. Xu Zhu waved his hand, and the liquor in his hand turned into ice at a speed visible to the naked eye. Song Qingshu's expression changed, and he exclaimed, "Be careful of hidden weapons." Song Qingshu didn't directly call out the name of the life-death note because he was worried that Ah Ching didn't know what the life-death note was. If Ah Ching was distracted, it would be bad. However, it was different to call her be careful of hidden weapons. After all, it was an instinct for martial artists to be careful of hidden weapons. As soon as Song Qingshu's voice fell, Su Zhu clasped his hands together, and the ice block in his hand shattered into thousands of thin ice shards. In an instant, the ice shards spread out like a swarm of wasps, attacking Ah Ching from all directions. Xu Zhu shot out so many ice flakes at once because he knew that with Ah Ching's martial arts, one or two life-death notes would not be able to hit her. Now that Ah Ching had seen the life-death note, it would be even more difficult for her to hit him. As such, Xu Zhu planned to finish the battle in one go. While Ah Ching was confused, he would attack with all his strength. As long as he could hit his opponent, he would win. Song Qingshu's face darkened. These two bald donkeys were quite cunning. The life-death notes, made with liquor, were 10 times faster than ordinary life-death notes. As long as Ah Ching was hit by one of the ice flakes, she would immediately lose her ability to fight. However, how many life-death notes could he block with the small stones in his hand? She could only rely on herself. With Ah Ching's eyesight, she could see that the ice flakes were only thin ice flakes. She didn't think it was a big deal at first, thinking that the ice flakes would melt when they touched her body. How powerful could they be? However, when she heard Song Qingshu's words, she immediately became vigilant. Are these hidden weapons? Although she didn't know why, Ah Ching gave up the idea of trying and decided to knock down the ice flakes first. She made a sword gesture and flew up in a spiral. As her body rotated, it was like a boulder was thrown into a calm lake. Waves of cyan, sword energy spread out like ripples. When the life-death notes touched the ripples formed by the sword energy in the air, it was like the beginning of the world. When the snow met the scorching sun, it disappeared without a trace. Seeing Ah Ching moving toward him, Xu Zhu wanted to fight back, but he was shocked to find that all his powers seemed to be imprisoned by an unknown force. He couldn't use any of his power at all. He could only watch Ah Ching's sword energy approach his throat. The people below the arena widened their eyes in horror. They felt an inexplicable pressure in the air, and it was extremely difficult for them to even lift their fingers. Xian Cheng's body shook, and his face turned red. Obviously, he had suffered serious internal injuries in order to break free. He couldn't help but think, even though I'm far away from the arena, I'm still under such a strong restriction. What kind of terrifying situation is facing Xu Zhu in the arena? Little monk, you lost. With Ah Ching's bell-like laughter, everyone in the field felt relieved and looked at the delicate girl on the stage as if they were looking at a monster. Yes, I lost. Shuju's face was ashen as he murmured. He was a disciple of the Shaolin Temple who had been carefully trained for more than 20 years. This time, he was going to amaze the world and win glory for the Shaolin Temple, but he was defeated by a girl. However, the crowd below the arena did not think that Shuju was honorable even though he had lost. Shuju was just an ordinary Shaolin disciple, but the strength he had displayed was shocking enough. Being able to fight against a sword immortal like Ah Ching was enough to kill most of the people here in an instant. It seemed that this girl had already won the Golden Snake King. This was what almost everyone in the arena thought at this moment. This girl is simply invincible. No matter who enters the finals, they will definitely lose. It's just a matter of who can last longer. Yang Miaojin, who had always been proud and arrogant, was disheartened at this moment. She couldn't help but look at the other two in the top four. They saw Yang was sitting there expressionlessly. The pale knuckles on the hand that held the black iron sword showed the nervousness in his heart. On the other side, Song Qingshi, Yang Miaojin was surprised to see him smiling and relaxed, as if he had a card up his sleeve. 2 chapters will be restored tomorrow. VIP Group 316289594 requires genuine subscription screenshot. Ordinary Group 337294925. End of this chapter. Chapter 483. How is this possible? This was Yang Miaojin's only thought. When she was in Kaifeng, she had fought with Song Qingshu. Although Song Qingshu's martial arts were slightly better than hers, there was a limit to it. If they really fought, the outcome would be almost the same. So why was he so confident? Seeing that the winner between Ah Ching and Shuju had been decided, Huang Rong walked onto the stage again. In view of the sudden movement of the Manchurian army, the 3rd round of the competition will begin in 2 hours. After that, the finals will be held soon. The Manchurian 8 banners had sent out the elites of the Manchurian 8 banners. They were divided into 4 armies. Each army was led by a famous general who had fought for many years. The Central Army consisted of 40,000 men, led by Prince Yulu. Yulu was currently the most respected general in the Manchurian imperial clan. As the grandson of Narachi, the 4th son of Rao Yumanabate, Yulu could be said to have outstanding military exploits. When the Manchurian Qing invaded the pass, he followed Prince Hao on a punitive expedition against Zhang Xianzhong and personally led his troops to kill him. Later, he quelled the rebellion of the Khalkha tribe and successfully made them submit to the Manchurian imperial court. In real history, he was also the commander who quelled the rebellion of the 3 border defenses in the future. Now, Yulu was in charge of the imperial clan court. Even the real Kangxi had to be respectful when he saw him. This time, the imperial court used him again. It could be said that they were determined to defeat the Golden Snake Camp. The West Army had 25,000 people and was led by General Fei Yuan. Fei Yanggu was a member of the Manchurian White Banners and had a very noble status. His sister was concubine Dongo, who was doted on by Emperor Shunji. Unlike the arrogant and despotic relatives of the emperor, he was proficient in both literature and martial arts. In real history, he showed his skills in quelling the rebellion of the 3 border defenses and the Jungar tribe. Fei Yanggu was Prince Yuli's most capable general. This time, Yulu directly gave him command of the West Army. His trust in Fei Yanggu's ability was evident. The North Army had 8,000 people, all elite cavalry, and equipped with the most advanced firearms. They were led by a famous general outside the pass, Sabusu. In real history, he commanded the Battle of Yakisa and successfully signed the Treaty of Nerchinsk. After many years of fighting against the Russian Far East Army, Sabusu had a taste of the Russian firearms and Cossack cavalry. Learning from his experience, he had also built a powerful cavalry firearms team to fight against them. Among the 4 armies, Sabusu's troops were the smallest in number, but their combat power was the strongest. The 30,000 men of the Eastern Army were led by the Grand Tutor of the Crown Prince and the Grand Scholar of the Palace of Zhangyi. They were led by the Minister of Rights, Tu Hai. Although he was a civil official, he was a real famous general. After entering the Great Wall, he wiped out the remaining troops of Li Zicheng, quelled the rebellion of Chahar, forced Wang Fuchen to surrender, and pacified the three border defenses in real history. His military exploits were not inferior to Prince Sen, Yulo. The two of them were the most prestigious old generals in the Manchurian imperial court. However, Tu Hai and Yu Le had never been on good terms. He felt that he had contributed more, yet he could only be ranked below Yu Le. He had long been dissatisfied. This time, in order to leave enough time for Song Qing-shu, Dongfang Muxiu used the identity of Emperor Kangxi to order the armies to temporarily hold back and wait for the Golden Snake Battalion to choose a new leader. Of course, the reason was just and honorable. After all, the Golden Snake Battalion was the biggest headache for the imperial court because of their guerrilla tactics. Once the situation was not good, they would break up and hide in the mountains. The imperial court's army spent a lot of money and food every day, so it was impossible for them to stay here forever. Once the imperial court's army retreated, the Golden Snake Battalion would appear like locusts, causing the Manchurian court unspeakably miserable. Dongfang Muxiu ordered them to wait for the Golden Snake Battalion to choose a new leader. In order to establish his authority, the new Golden Snake King would definitely choose to take the initiative to attack. In that case, the imperial court's army would be able to destroy the main force of the Golden Snake Battalion in one fell swoop. Prince Sin, Yulu, was deeply in agreement. Thus, he ordered the armies to stay where they were and wait for further orders. However, Tu Hai had always been dissatisfied with Yulu. After staying for a few days, he could no longer hold back and led his troops to march towards the Golden Snake Battalion. He wanted to seize the first merit and make Yulu lose face. Tu Hai was not worried that he would be defeated. He had 30,000 men under his command, all of whom were strong soldiers who could fight well. Moreover, he had faced opponents like Li Zicheng in the past, so why would he care about the small Golden Snake Battalion? Sensing that Tu Hai's troops were gradually approaching, the leaders of the Golden Snake Battalion immediately decided to speed up the selection of the Golden Snake King. Hearing the content of Huang Rong's announcement, the heroes in the field whispered to each other. The top 4 contestants and the forces behind them frowned. After all, not only did they have to consider winning the semifinals, they also had to consider how to allocate their physical strength as much as possible so that they would not exhaust their internal chi in the semifinals and give their opponents an advantage in the finals. Song Qing-shu smiled slightly. Everything was under his control. Even Tu Hai's reckless advance was planned by him and Dongfang Muxiu. The generals of the 4 armies were chosen by him and Dongfang Muxiu together. They had to capture the most direct troops and generals of the 8 banners of the Manchurian Qing in one fell swoop. After all, if the generals were united as a piece of iron board, even if Song Qing-shu was familiar with all the information of both sides, if he really wanted to take down this 100,000-strong army in one gulp, it would be beyond the strength of the Golden Snake Battalion. Now that Tu Hai's army had penetrated deep, it was the perfect opportunity for him to defeat them one by one. Big brother, thank you for just now. A clear voice woke Song Qing-shu up from his contemplation. He raised his head and saw Qing looking at him with a grin on her face. It's nothing. Song Qing-shu smiled. With your martial arts, even if I didn't remind you, you would be able to handle it. That's not necessarily true. Just now, I was going to touch those ice flakes. Qing smiled innocently and suddenly showed a trace of doubt. I think Big Brother is very good. I don't understand why Sister Yuan and the others say you are a bad guy. Song Qing-shu looked at the Red Flower Society thoughtfully. He saw that Wan Ting was staring at him with a vicious face when Tai Lai was full of anger, and Yuan Zi's eyes were full of contempt. Yuan's lifelong plan was destroyed by me, when Tai Lai's wife was used by me, so it's natural for him to hate me. Yuan Zi, you were only deceived by me once. It's not a big deal. Why do you make it look like I raped you? Song Qing-shu was speechless. Then he explained to Qing patiently, a matter or a person's good or bad is different in the eyes of different people. For example, one day you drop a gold ingot on the roadside. It's a bad thing for you, but it's a good thing for the person who picked it up. Do you understand? Qing frowned. So what if the gold is dropped? It's not a bad thing for me. Song Qing-shu was almost choked speechless. He froze for a long time. Then he looked at the girl in front of him suspiciously. Does she not know what gold is? Let's put it another way. One day you dropped a sheep by the roadside, and someone picked it up. Before Song Qing-shu could finish, Ah-ching was so angry that her almond-shaped eyes widened. That damn thief! How dare he pick up my sheep? Song Qing-shu let out a long sigh of relief. Seeing Ah-ching's look, she should have understood. VIP group 316-289-594. Need to confirm by screenshot of genuine subscription. Ordinary group 337-294925. Chapter 484. As soon as Ah-ching left, Yang Miaozhen walked over. Prince Song, it seems you're close to Ah-ching. Song Qing-shu glanced at the valiant and heroic woman in front of him in surprise and smiled slightly. Just so. Yang Miaozhen's smile froze. She wanted to sound him out, but she didn't expect him to be so secretive. After thinking about it, Yang Miaozhen rolled her eyes and continued to sound him out. I heard that after the battle, just now, Lady Ah-ching's odds have plummeted to almost 1. The odds of the few of us are almost 1. It seems like the Golden Snake King will definitely be Lady Ah-ching. Really? Song Qing-shu's eyes lit up, and he immediately called Zheng Ro over. Ro, go take out the money from the box in my room and bet it all on me. Zheng Ro's little mouth opened wide. All on you? That wasn't a small amount. Of course, we'll bet everything. It's such a good opportunity to make money. Song Qing-shu hurriedly urged. Okay. Zheng Ro left with a puzzled look, wondering if she should ask the ninth princess first. Otherwise, if Big Brother Song acted rashly, the ninth princess would have to starve. However, hearing her words, Zhu Yuezhen's eyes also lit up. She took out an exquisite small box from the back room and stuffed it into Zheng Ro's hands. This is some of the dowry I've saved over the years. Put it in for me. Oh, if you have any money, remember to put it in as well. It's a rare opportunity. Seeing the ninth princess's eyes shining with silver light, Zheng Ro was stunned. Is Prince Song so sure that he can win? Yang Miaozhen looked at him in disbelief. I think so. Song Qing-shu smiled shyly. I think so. Yang Miaozhen was puzzled. Is he trying to be mysterious, or is he really confident? Is he trying to distract me later? Since Prince Song said that, does that mean he thinks he can win against little sister? Yang Miaozhen stared into his eyes, trying to see something different. The fourth lady's spear technique is outstanding, and Song Mao has always admired it. How can I win with certainty? Song Qing-shu said modestly. Yang Miaozhen gritted her teeth in hatred. Although Song Qing-shu said it modestly, his expression almost said that she was no match for him. I'll teach you a lesson later. Yang Miaozhen suppressed the depression in her heart and was about to leave when she suddenly found that Zhou Zhuo and Zhu Baoyun, who had been accompanying Song Qing-shu, were not here. She could not help but ask, doubtfully, why are sect leader Zhou and the ninth princess not here? They can't get away for the time being. After saying that, Song Qing-shu closed his mouth and refused to say another word. What is more important than accompanying your husband at this time? Yang Miaozhen was even more puzzled, but she also understood that she wouldn't be able to find out anything valuable even if she stayed. She turned around and walked a few steps before she suddenly stopped and said, Nowadays, everyone in Jianghu is talking about how lucky young Master Song is to be able to receive the favor of two fairy-like girls. I'm very curious as to how young Master managed to make them as close as sisters. Won't you know when you become their sister? Song Qing-shu could not help but tease her. Bah! Yang Miaozhen couldn't help but spit. In fact, a beautiful woman like her mingled with the mountain bandits all day long. It was inevitable that she would be teased by those men. However, she had always been a tough woman, so she would usually choke them back. In addition, she was skilled in martial arts, so she had never suffered any losses. Unfortunately, she met Song Qing-shu, whose face was thicker than the city wall and whose martial arts were not inferior to hers. Yang Miaozhen found that she was at her wit's end. She could only stomp her feet and turn around to leave. The 2-hour break time passed quickly, and Huang Rong announced the official start of the third round of the competition. The first match was between Song Qing-shu and Yang Miaozhen. Yang Miaozhen stood upright in the corner of the arena, and the long spear in her hand was quietly planted on the ground. She could feel that her spirit had reached its peak, and her condition was even better than when she had fought with Sherpa Tian. This time, she did not continue to use the big red cloak. Although this cloak could also be used as a weapon, it could only be used to deal with ordinary soldiers. But to deal with a master like Song Qing-shu, such a wide cloak could be said to be the Achilles heel. Looking at the woman standing on the opposite side of the arena, Song Qing-shu almost couldn't help whistling. Yang Miaozhen was tall and slender. Without a cloak, her voluptuous figure could be seen for all to see. She was like a proud rouge horse standing there, waiting for her destined knight to conquer her. Bah, bah, bah. Look at the situation, and you are still thinking about these useless things. Song Qing-shu began to despise himself. Yang Miaozhen's eyes lit up. She had already keenly noticed Song Qing-shu's momentary absent-mindedness. She gave a delicate shout, grabbed her long spear, and swung it forward. The stone slabs covering the arena were lifted up by an invisible force, one after another smashing towards Song Qing-shu. Song Qing-shu's eyes narrowed as he looked at the stone slabs that filled the sky. He didn't dodge, but instead stretched out his hands and pressed forward. Those flying stone slabs seemed to be caught by an invisible hand, and they stopped moving in midair. At this moment, the stone slab became extremely still again. Below the arena, many people who were not strong enough watched with disgust and disgust in their chests. They were all aghast. Song Qing-shu's seemingly effortless block was not something that could be done unless one was in the great Grandmaster realm. Among them, those who knew Song Qing-shu had different expressions. Yu Wanting, Wen Tai Lai, and those who had a deep hatred for him were slightly pale. Obviously, they were hateful and afraid. Mu Palace, Wu Tang clan, and those who were on good terms with him were happy. Shaolin Temple's Chongyang, and those who had a grudge against him, all looked dignified. Huang Rong glanced at the figure in the arena with a very complicated expression. She could not help but start to think of question. Between Brother Jing and him, whose martial arts were better, thinking of the situation in the cave that night, Huang Rong faintly sighed and unnaturally looked away. Suddenly, she found that her daughter beside her was looking at the man with shining eyes. She could not help but be shocked. Fu obviously doesn't get along with him. Why is she looking at him like that? There are many people under the arena, but only a moment passed on the arena. In the next second, the stone slabs in midair broke with a loud bang, and a dazzling pear blossom spear bloomed. Yang Miaozhen's whole body spun in a spiral, and she stabbed towards Song Qing-shu. Yang Miaozhen's spear art was originally as fast as lightning. Now, with the support of the spiral force, not only was the speed faster, but the power was also doubled. Song Qing-shu did not dare to take it head-on, and with a feint, he narrowly avoided it. Yang Miaozhen seemed to have expected this. The long spear in her hand sank down and directly pierced into the arena. Using the counterforce from the ground, her whole body turned in a circle, and her two straight long legs, like real pear blossom spears, suddenly stabbed towards Song Qing-shu's neck. Chapter 485. Yang Miaozhen's move was beyond everyone's expectations. They had only seen people using their legs as a whip, but they had never seen anyone using their legs to perform spear arts. Yang Miaozhen's legs were very long and straight, so the power of her pear blossom spear was no less than a real spear. Song Qing-shu was caught off guard and almost got kicked in the face. However, with Song Qing-shu's current realm, he was not panicked. He raised his palm and hit Yang Miaozhen's ankle with a slap, a flick, or a push. Every time, he hit the weakest part of Yang Miaozhen's ankle, nullifying her fierce attacks. Yang Miaozhen did not intend to defeat Song Qing-shu with her legs. Her spear art was about following the flow of nature. There was no part of her body that couldn't be used as a spear. Thus, her attacks could be continuous, exhausting her opponent. Song Qing-shu's palm happened to lift her ankle up. Yang Miaojin used this force to somersault in midair. The pear blossom spear that was stuck in the ground just now was already flashing with a cold light as it pierced towards Song Qingshu's chest. The fourth lady's body is really flexible, Song Qingshu praised inwardly. His figure had already retreated several feet. Yang Miaojin's attack was ineffective, so she did not continue to attack. Instead, she focused her mind and looked at him in a daze. Fourth lady, it's impolite not to reciprocate. I let you attack me just now. Now it's my turn, right? Song Qingshu said with a smile as he looked at the fine sweat on Yang Miaojin's temples. Please. Yang Miaojin also smiled gracefully, but she was not as relaxed as she appeared on her face. She had fought with Song Qingshu before, so she knew that his lightning-fast, ghostly movements were the most troublesome. Then please be careful, fourth lady. Just as Song Qingshu finished speaking, his entire body had already transformed into an afterimage. Before the people below the stage could even realize what had happened, the place where Yang Miaojin was standing had already exploded with a snow-white sparkle of spears. Mother, where did Song Qingshu go? I only saw the fourth lady brandishing her spear on the stage alone. Guofu's eyes widened in shock. Her gaze darted around, but she couldn't see Song Qingshu at all. Huang Rong's face was filled with deep shock. How could a person's speed be so fast? Hearing her daughter's questions, Huang Rong pointed to the stage with a complicated look in her eyes. He's always been there. It's just that you can't see him because he's too fast. Guofu was startled and quickly focused on Yang Miaojin's surroundings. Under her mother's guidance, she finally caught a glimpse of a gray shadow, but it disappeared in the blink of an eye. Guofu wanted to look again, but her eyes felt sore and she was seeing stars. She couldn't help but be shocked. Is he a human or a ghost? Huang Rong's face suddenly turned red, and she secretly spat in her heart. Of course it was a ghost, and a pervert at that. Yang Miaojin, who was in the center of the storm, felt it even more strongly. Her eyesight was naturally 10,000 times better than Guofu's, but it was still very difficult for her to catch Song Qingshu's figure. In the end, she simply closed her eyes. In this kind of situation, it didn't make a difference whether she could see or not. It was better to use her heart to feel the flow of the surrounding air and the changes in Song Qingshu's qi. If the pear blossom spear's power was 10 points on normal days, then Yang Miaojin's current state of mind was as calm as water. The pear blossom spear's power was 120%. Pear blossoms bloomed one after another, protecting Yang Miaojin's body. Each pear blossom was condensed from her true qi. No matter how fast Song Qingshu was, if he wanted to attack her, he would have to break through these pear blossoms. As for the pear blossoms that Yang Miaojin released, each pear blossom was connected to her own qi. She knew which pear blossom was shattered, which pear blossom was moved away, which pear blossom had abnormal qi around it. Her heart was as clear as a mirror. Therefore, although Song Qingshu was fast, she could predict his attack angle and attack trajectory from the shattered pear blossoms. Therefore, although Yang Miaojin couldn't see her opponent, she was still standing in the arena, like a small boat in the middle of a storm. It seemed dangerous, but she was always able to avert danger. All the heroes of Jianghu were dazzled by everything that was happening on the stage. They had all witnessed Yang Miaojin's exquisite spear technique with their own eyes. The sky full of pear blossoms had been suppressing Sherpa Tian. They didn't expect that the tables would turn so quickly. Now, she was the one who was bitterly defending and was trapped 3 feet away from her opponent. The qing gong displayed by Song Qingshu was really beyond the knowledge of most of the people present. Immediately, discussions broke out among them. They all felt that with this qing gong, he was already in an undefeatable position. It was really hard to say who would win the Golden Snake King this time. The people of Red Flower Society clearly had the same worries. Yu Wanning was still able to keep his composure, but when Tai Lai couldn't help but ask the little girl not far away, Miss Ah Qing, this little thief surnamed Song is so fast. Do you have a way to deal with him? Ah Qing was focused on eating an apple. Hearing his words, she cast a glance at the arena and said with a smile, It's easy. Just fill the arena with sword chi. Ah Ching's answer made the surrounding people speechless. Other than you, who else had this kind of ability? However, what she said was not without reason. Just like the omnipresent sunlight, when the entire arena was filled with sword chi, no matter how fast Song Qingshu's speed was, he had nowhere to run. When Tai Lai couldn't help but look at Yuanting, both seeing the joy in each other's eyes. They thought that if this brat Song Qingshu dared to use this move against Ah Qing next time, he would be seeking his own death. Just at this moment, the two people on the arena suddenly separated. Looking at Yang Miaojin, who was slightly panting, Song Qingshu praised in admiration. I didn't think that you could think of this move to deal with my speed. Even though the others thought that he had the upper hand, he himself was clear that in the previous round of attacks, he didn't have any advantage. Thank you for your praise, young master. Yang Miaojin had a proud expression. After suffering a loss at the hands of Song Qingshu last time, she had spent a lot of effort to research a way to deal with him. Thus, she was able to deal with him with ease this time. But doing this really consumes a lot of true chi. If I continue to attack, how long can you last? Song Qingshu's gaze involuntarily fell on Yang Miaojin's chest, which was rising and falling due to her panting. Noticing Song Qingshu's gaze, not only did Yang Miaojin not avoid it, but she purposely puffed out her chest as if she didn't care at all. Her voice suddenly became flirtatious. Young master, do you really have the heart to bully me every time with your speed? Even if you win like this, it's still an unfair victory. I will never be convinced. Aya, when can I change this temperament of mine? Song Qingshu scolded himself inwardly. Then he smiled and said, Then how does Fourth Lady want to compete? Yang Miaojin's eyes turned. She picked up her spear and drew 4 footprints on the ground. Here, we will fight in this circle. Whoever's feet leave this circle will be the loser. How about it? Like this? Song Qingshu deliberately hesitated. Chapter 486. Song Qingshu was secretly amused. Yang Miaojin's suggestion seemed fair, but it was actually extremely scoundrelly. From the fight just now, he knew that her pear blossom spear had been trained to perfection. It didn't really matter if she had a spear or not. If her legs could be used as the pear blossom spear, then her hands could naturally use the pear blossom spear. Just by giving up her weapon, she would destroy her advantage in qinggong and swordsmanship. Her plan was quite good. However, Song Qingshu had always been a person who had tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. He didn't dislike Yang Miaojin's harmless slyness, so he pretended not to know and nodded in agreement. Noticing Song Qingshu's spurious smile, Yang Miaojin's expression became embarrassed. She knew that he had probably seen through her trick, and the only reason he had agreed was because he was conceited. Oomph. I'll make you regret being careless later. The two of them stood in the footprints she had drawn. Yang Miaojin smiled slightly. Then I will have to offend you. After that, she swung her arm and attacked Song Qingshu from an unbelievable angle. It was the pear blossom spear. Yang Miaojin's lips curled into a proud smile. Now that both of them were confined in such a circle, it was more about the subtlety of their moves. Her pear blossom spear had always been known for its subtlety. Song Qingshu had miscalculated this time. Suddenly, Yang Miaojin's expression changed. She saw Song Qingshu casually raise his hand. The speed at which he raised his hand was very slow, but it just happened to block her pulse point. Yang Miaojin wanted to change her move, but it was too late. Her wrist was tightly held by Song Qingshu. She tried to pull it back several times, but it didn't budge at all. Clenching her teeth, Yang Miaojin took advantage of the time when Song Qingshu hadn't used his strength to block her acupuncture point. Yang Miaojin's other hand made a large arc and attacked the side of his neck. She calculated clearly that if Song Qingshu wanted to dodge this move, he would have to let go of her hand. Who would have thought that Song Qingshu would simply tilt his head back and dodge Yang Miaojin's attack? Her hand was less than an inch away from Song Qingshu's neck, but Yang Miaojin had used all her strength in her attack, so she was destined to be unable to cross that 1 inch. Yang Miaojin lightly snorted. Pear Blossom Spear was not that easy to break. Yang Miaojin changed her palm into a flick. Her slender fingers suddenly stretched out and flicked towards Song Qingshu's throat as if she was plucking a string. Although her hand couldn't move any further, with the extended length of her fingers, it was more than enough to reach Song Qingshu. Although the force of her fingers wasn't heavy, the throat was the most vulnerable part of the human body. If Song Qingshu was really hit, no matter how strong his internal energy was, he would probably feel temporarily suffocated. In a battle between experts, victory and defeat was always a fine line. Yang Miaojin had already predicted that she was about to win this battle, but soon her smile froze again. Song Qingshu did not expect Yang Miaojin to have such a trick. It was easy to avoid it, but his feet would inevitably leave the circle he had drawn. He was regretting his carelessness earlier, but an idea flashed in his mind, and he had already thought of a way to break it. Yang Miaojin was feeling proud of herself when she suddenly realized that Song Qingshu opened his mouth and bit the finger she flicked at him. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but she seemed to feel his tongue gently licking her fingertip. Yang Miaojin did not expect such a thing to happen. Her whole body suddenly froze as she stared blankly at the other party. Yo, are these two fighting or flirting? TSK, TSK, TSK so soon? This Song guy is really awesome. He just slept with the 9th princess yesterday, and today he actually slept with this rouge tiger in front of so many people. 4th lady, where's your usual valiance? Why are you acting like a shy wife now? No matter how valiant the 4th lady is, she is still a woman. When she met a handsome man, she must be thinking of spring. Ha ha ha, hearing the vulgar words coming from below the stage, Yang Miaojin finally came to her senses. She found that Song Qingshu was still biting her finger, and she couldn't help but feel ashamed and angry. At this moment, one of her wrists was being held by Song Qingshu, and the other hand was being bitten by him. She couldn't move at all, so she could only lift her leg and kick hard at the space between his legs. The men below the stage felt a chill between their legs, and they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. This woman's temper is really fierce. Song Qingshu was also shocked. Yang Miaojin's kick was full of hatred. If he was kicked by her, whether it was the happiness of the rest of his life or the sexual happiness of the lower half of his life, it would all be ruined. Song Qingshu hurriedly moved his body to the side and dodged her kick. Taking advantage of her strength, he used his arm to clamp her raised leg under his armpit. Oh, there was a burst of malicious whistles from below the stage. At this moment, both of Yang Miaojin's hands were restrained, and even her leg was being clamped by Song Qingshu. Her entire posture was extremely embarrassing, and her tight clothes could no longer cover her proud curves. The group of rich guests all stare with their eyes wide open. Yang Miaojin exerted force several times, but she found that the force she sent over was like a clay ox entering the sea. It was completely useless. She couldn't help but feel ashamed and angry. Let go of me. If the 4th lady admits defeat, I will naturally let go. Being close to her, Song Qingshu couldn't help but admit that Yang Miaojin really did have the ability to be proud of herself. As if noticing Song Qingshu's slightly vulgar gaze, Yang Miaojin's skin flushed red. She snorted, twisted her waist, and her whole body flew into the air. Her other leg directly kicked towards Song Qingshu's ribs. It was as if Song Qingshu had already expected this. This time, he didn't dodge, and forcibly took this whip kick from her. Although she had kicked him, Yang Miaojin's expression changed. She felt that the force contained in her kick had been completely dissolved by a gentle force. This body protection technique didn't seem to be inferior to sure potions. Before Yang Miaojin had time to be shocked, she was stunned to find that her leg had also been clamped under his armpit by Song Qingshu. At this moment, her whole body was completely hanging on his body. Her legs were clamped under Song Qingshu's armpit. One hand was held by him, and the other hand was in his mouth. That posture was as ambiguous as it could be, as if they were a pair of intimate husband and wife. Wow! Hearing the exclamations coming from below the arena, Yang Miaojin really wanted to find a hole and hide in it. At this moment, Song Qing-shu's hateful voice suddenly came to her ears. "Fourth lady, your feet are off the ground now. According to the rules you set yourself, you seem to have lost." Yang Miaojin didn't have the time to care about winning or losing at this moment. I lost, quickly put me down. Being held in his arms in front of all the heroes of the world. Even Yang Miaojin, who had always been shrewd, couldn't bear it. "Fourth lady, please don't take it to heart if I offended you just now." Song Qing-shu gently put Yang Miaojin down and apologized. Yang Miaojin also had a gloomy expression. In the end, it was all her own doing. She was the one who proposed this method of competition, and she was the one who took the initiative to stretch out her arms and legs to attack him. He was just passively defending himself, unable to find someone to vent her anger on. Yang Miaojin simply snorted coldly and ran down the stage as if she was escaping. Chapter 487. This Song Qing-shu is really good at harming women. Noticing Yang Miaojin's blushing face, Huang Rong felt weird. She couldn't help but glare at Song Qing-shu, only to find that he was also looking at her. Huang Rong was so scared that she quickly looked away. She quickly walked to the stage and concluded the battle. Then, she announced the start of the next battle. Qing versus Yang Gua. "Big brother, what happened to your arm?" Qing stared at Yang Gua's empty sleeve and asked curiously. Yang Gua frowned. His broken arm had become a sore spot. If someone stared at it, he couldn't help but want to teach them a lesson, let alone ask them directly. But seeing Qing's innocent face and how natural it was, Yang Gua didn't get angry. He just replied coldly, "It's broken. How could your arm be broken?" Qing was even more surprised. Was it bitten off by a tiger? In Qing's opinion, tigers were the fiercest of all animals. No, it was chopped off. Yang Gua's voice was cold. He looked at Guofu with hatred. Guofu felt guilty when he glared at her. She quickly hid behind her mother. Huang Rong patted her daughter's hand. She couldn't help but feel worried. How can this hatred be resolved? "Chopped off," Qing exclaimed. She looked at Yang Gua with sympathy. "Then you must have been in pain." Yang Gua hated to be pitted, but Qing's tone was sincere. Yang Gua frowned and answered, "It didn't hurt for a long time." "Then, I'll use one hand too." Qing put one hand behind her back subconsciously. Yang Gua was filled with arrogance. He said angrily, "I, Yang Gua, am a man of indomitable spirit. If I win, I win. If I lose, I lose." But Qing couldn't help but stare at his broken arm. Yang Gua's face darkened. "Don't think that I can't beat you with one hand. You underestimate me. If that's the case, then I won't be polite," Qing said with a smile. She waved a new bamboo stick and stabbed at Yang Gua's body. Yang Gua's eyes narrowed, and he stood there without moving. When Qing was less than 3 feet away from him, Yang Gua finally moved. With a dragon's roar, Yang Gua unsheathed his black iron sword. With the power of the black iron sword, Yang Gua was confident that no matter how high Qing's martial arts were, he would not be able to withstand it. Even the bamboo stick in his hand couldn't stop him. Qing had seen Yang Gua fight a few times before. Every time his opponent clashed with him, their weapons were either knocked away or broken by the black iron sword. She didn't dare to face the sword head-on. She turned her wrist, and the green bamboo stick pointed at the back of the black iron sword at an exquisite angle. Yang Gua was also afraid of Qing's sword chi. He was worried that his black iron sword would be damaged, so he also changed his style. The body of the sword took the opportunity to stick to the green bamboo stick, using a soft force to stick to the green bamboo stick. Qing didn't expect that such a heavy weapon could play such a delicate trick. She felt a huge suction force coming from the stick, and the bamboo stick almost fell out of her hand. Qing twisted her wrist, and her sleeve gently brushed the bamboo stick. The bamboo stick immediately spun quickly, and it broke free from the suction force of the black iron sword. It returned to Qing's control. Yang Gua was shaken by the spiraling force coming from the sword. He quickly took a step back before he could regain his balance. Qing took the opportunity to take a few steps back. She wrinkled her nose and said, I don't want to fight you in close combat. After she said that, she stabbed at Yangguo with a cold sword chi. It turned out that Ching was also afraid of the black iron sword in Yangguo's hand. If they fought in close combat, it was inevitable that their weapons would clash, and the bamboo stick in her hand would be at a disadvantage. Yangguo's footsteps changed slightly, and he dodged the sword chi to the side. Ching wanted to use the sword chi to cut back, but Yangguo was one step ahead of her. He raised the black iron sword and fiercely smashed the sword chi. Boom! A cloud of dust flew up from the arena. The sharp-eyed experts below the arena had already seen that although Yangguo's body was covered in stone chips and looked a bit awkward, he was not injured in the slightest. That dense sword chi had already disappeared. Looking at the black iron sword in Yangguo's hand, Ching's eyes flashed with doubt. Not only Ching, but everyone below the stage was staring at the black iron sword with fervent eyes. Previously, Yangguo had already attracted the attention of many people because he could kill gods and Buddhas in his way. Now he had directly destroyed Ching's Xiantian sword chi, and there was not even a scratch on the sword. It was definitely a legendary divine weapon. If they could take such a divine weapon, wouldn't they be able to do whatever they wanted in the Jianghu? Many people couldn't help but be greedy, but when they thought of Yangguo's martial arts, they had to give up this tempting idea. I think I have seen this sword before. Ching suddenly appeared. To continue this chapter, please turn to the next page. A sentence. You didn't remember it wrong, did you? Yangguo was stunned. This sword had been sealed in the sword catacomb for many years. How old was Ching? How could she have seen it before? I can't be wrong. Ching couldn't help but frown. It was obvious that her memory was a little blurred. But it wasn't you who had this sword. It was someone else. Yangguo was shocked. Do you know Dugu Chiobai? As soon as the words left his mouth, Yangguo regretted it. He was really muddle-headed. Is that person called Dugu Chiobai? Ching's eyes became confused, as if she was deep in thought. I don't know his name. I only remember that he had a big eagle with him. This time it was Yangguo's turn to be shocked. His mouth was wide open, and he couldn't recover for a long time. Song Qingshu was also shocked. Ching had seen Dugu Chiobai, so how old was she? Looking at Ching's young and innocent face, Song Qingshu couldn't help but shiver. Could she be like Heaven Mountain Tonglao, a lowly on the outside but an old woman on the inside? I don't know what happened to that person. When he saw me, he pestered me to fight. But I don't like fighting, so I ignored him. Who knew that he would? Ching became more and more excited as she spoke. Her little mouth was raised high. What did Dugu Chiobai do? Yangguo asked Song Qingshu what was on his mind. That bad guy actually let the big eagle eat one of my sheep. Ching gritted her teeth. It was obvious that she was talking about something that she hated in her life. Sheep? Yangguo was startled. He didn't understand what was going on. To him, it was just a sheep. What was there to make such a big fuss about? Song Qingshu had a strange expression on his face. He guessed that the stupid bird must have suffered a lot. Sure enough, Ching snorted. Since he dared to eat my sheep, I will pluck out all the feathers of that flat-haired animal. Unfortunately, I didn't pluck out much before that person attacked. But that stupid bird didn't have a good ending. I plucked out a few of its most important feathers. It will never be able to fly again in this life. Hearing Ching's words, Song Qingshu's expression suddenly became very interesting. So that was why the big eagle couldn't fly. No wonder it became fatter and fatter. It was the result of giving up on itself. I have something to do today. Chapter 488. Yangguo also had a strange expression on his face. He didn't know Brother Eagle had such a tragic past. Who won in the end? Yangguo suddenly asked. He already knew the answer. Since Senior Dugu left those words in the sword catacomb, it proved that he had never lost in his life. For some reason, Dugu's seeker of defeat was like a god in Yangguo's heart. He couldn't accept any blemish on a god. Hearing Yangguo's question, Ching suddenly looked embarrassed. I was a little taller than him, but with the help of the giant eagle, he was a little taller than me. Ever since he lost his arm, Yangguo showed a rare smile on his face. Don't you have a sheep? Humph. Ching wrinkled her nose. It's because I have to take care of the sheep that I'm a little shorter than them. Noticing Yangguo's smile, Qing suddenly became angry. I thought you were quite pitiful because you lost an arm, but you actually laughed at me. You're really not a good person with a sword. As if he had been stabbed in the foot, Qing immediately went into a berserk mode. He waved the green bamboo stick, and streams of sharp sword chi stabbed toward Yanghua from afar. Yanghua's expression changed, and he hurriedly waved his sword in front of him. Originally, the ancient tomb sect's lightness skill was the best in the world, but after Yanghua switched to the heavy sword, he had already given up on the path of lightness. After all, with the heavy sword in hand, his defense was almost invincible. He didn't need to dodge at all. He could directly use the heavy sword to block the incoming attacks, and the opponent could only change their moves at the last moment. Unfortunately, this time Yanghua was facing a freak who could release an unlimited amount of innate sword chi. He was worried that passively blocking would damage the dark iron sword, so he had to actively attack the incoming sword chi. After all, the dark iron sword was too heavy. After blocking dozens of moves, Yanghua felt his arm gradually go numb, and his moves became obscure. In the end, he finally gave up and put the dark iron sword vertically in front of him. He channeled his inner force into the sword and blocked the endless innate sword chi. Not long after, Yanghua's keen senses detected a tremor coming from the dark iron sword. He knew in his heart that the dark iron sword had already been damaged by the continuous bombardment of Xiantian sword chi. If this continued, the dark iron sword might not be able to withstand it anymore. Now, Yanghua had no friends or relatives. Apart from the divine eagle, the only other thing he cared about was this mysterious iron. The sword is the most affectionate. How could it be willing to see it get hurt? Just as it was about to admit defeat, a sense of melancholy rose in its heart. Guojing and Huang Rong had not only killed his father, but also cut off his arm. If he did not avenge this, he would not be a man. Unfortunately, not only were they highly skilled in martial arts, but they also had many followers in Jianghu. If he could not be elected as the Golden Snake King this time, how could he seek revenge from them alone? And my aunt, if I can be elected as the Golden Snake King, she will definitely hear the news and come find me. Thinking of Xiao Long Nu, Yang was suddenly felt sad. A feeling of parting gradually welled up in his heart. The expressions of all the heroes in the arena changed, because they could feel the change in the aura coming from the arena at the same time. With Yanghua as the center, a desolate aura spread out in all directions, quickly filling the entire arena. This feeling, Song Qingshu's expression changed. With his cultivation, he could naturally feel a destructive aura rising gradually, and he could not help but be shocked. Qing, watch out! Yanghua raised his hand almost at the same time, and the green sword aura in front of him shattered inch by inch at a speed visible to the naked eye. Qing's eyes narrowed, and he hurriedly put the green bamboo stick in front of him. Crack! The green bamboo stick, as expected, was shattered into powder. Qing spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body flew out of the arena like a kite with a broken string. Qing lost? What kind of martial arts is this, Yanghua? If that earth-shattering move had landed on me, wouldn't I have been smashed into pieces? Thoughts flashed through the minds of the masters below the arena. Suddenly, they were surprised to find that Qing's body flipped, and he was standing on the edge of the arena, not falling down. What's this move called? Qing wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at Yanghua in surprise. For some reason, Jiang Yan's farewell rhapsody suddenly appeared in Yanghua's mind, and he immediately blurted out, "Let's call it Palm of Sadness." Palm of Sadness? What a strange name. With Qing's carefree nature, she naturally could not understand the sadness hidden in these words. All right, I also have a move. Try it. Qing's green bamboo stick was destroyed, so she opened her hands. As she rose from the side of her legs to the top of her head, green sword aura appeared in the air around her, like an open fan floating above her head. Then, the sword aura gradually merged together, and finally, it turned into a huge green sword. Qing made a downward gesture, and the huge green sword immediately whistled through the air towards Yanghua. Yanghua had been accumulating strength, and when he saw this, He hit the huge sword with his palm with a serious expression. The dark gray fist aura and the huge green sword collided, and suddenly there was a loud bang. The huge sword hung in the air, as if it was being held up by an invisible hand, and could not fall down. Ah-Ching was a little surprised. She waved her other hand, and another sword aura replenished it, and the huge green sword immediately became brighter. Yang's hair was dripping with cold sweat. He had just learned Palm of Sadness, and he was not very familiar with it yet. It was already quite difficult for him to deal with the huge sword, and Ah-Ching was still replenishing the sword aura. He knew he had lost, but at this moment, he could not open his mouth to admit defeat. Yangwo lost his father when he was young, and his mother when he was young. The many years of ups and downs had made his character extremely extreme. When he was young, he was almost beaten to death by the big and small martial artists, but he was not willing to admit defeat. Now, his martial arts were 100 times better than before, and he was even more arrogant. When his stubbornness came out, he would rather die in the arena than admit defeat. Feeling that Yang's palm power seemed to be a little stronger, Ah-Ching did not know that he was at the end of his rope. She thought that he was going to counterattack, and she was anxious. She did not hold back anymore, and she used all her strength to attack Yangwa. Puff! Yangwa spat out a mouthful of blood, and he could not hold on anymore. The fist aura in the air lost its support, and it was suddenly cut in half by the huge green sword, and then it cut down like a hot knife through butter. Looking at the huge sword that was getting bigger and bigger, Yangwa closed his eyes subconsciously and sighed in his heart, "Goodbye, Aunt." Only then did Ah-Ching realize that Yangwa could not hold on anymore, but it was a pity that she was in high spirits, and she did not hold back at all. It was too late for her to change her move, and she could only watch the huge green sword cut down on Yangwa. Thinking about the horrible scene that was about to happen, Ah-Ching closed her eyes subconsciously. Chapter 489. Boom! The giant sword finally chopped down, and an earth-shattering cloud of dust rose up. When the smoke and dust gradually dispersed, all the heroes in the arena were stunned to find that the entire arena had been split into two by the huge green sword, and there was a bottomless sword mark on the ground that had split the entire arena into two. What a terrifying sword! This was everyone's first thought. I'm afraid that Kid Yangwa has already been hacked until not even his bones remain. This was everyone's second thought. Thank you, Brother Song, for lending a helping hand. At this moment, a fearful voice sounded from his side. Hearing that familiar voice, everyone turned their heads in bewilderment and saw Yangwa bowing to Song Qingshu with a pale face. "It's nothing much. Brother Yang doesn't need to take it to heart." Song Qingshu hurriedly helped him up. It turned out that at that critical moment, Song Qingshu had appeared on the arena and used his lightning-fast Qinggong to save Yangwa. Yangwa's face turned serious. To Brother Song, it may be as easy as lifting a finger, but to me, it's a life-saving grace. In the future, if Brother Song has any requests, just let me know. I won't even frown. Song Qingshu had a strange expression on his face. He thought, if I asked you for Xiao Long Nu, would you really give it to me? In fact, Song Qingshu had hesitated to save him. After all, Xiao Long Nu was the ultimate fantasy of every man, and Song Qingshu was no exception. When he saw Xiao Long Nu in the inn with icy snow, it was really shocking. The natural possessiveness of men made Song Qingshu desire her subconsciously. But the love between Xiao Long Nu and Yangwa was stronger than stone. Unless he used force, there was no way he could obtain Xiao Long Nu's body and mind. It was a pity that Song Qingshu had already washed his hands of such dirty methods. It would be good if he could use Ah-Ching to get rid of Yangwa openly. At that time, with his own means, he would not be afraid of not being able to get Xiao Long Nu. This was the evil idea that Song Qingshu could not help but have. Of course, Song Qingshu dispelled this idea in the end. It would be a little too despicable to do so. Moreover, his current martial arts mainly relied on the cultivation of his state of mind. If he really stood by and watched, although he could deceive others, he would not be able to deceive his own heart. At that time, A crack would be left in his state of mind, and he would never be able to improve his cultivation for the rest of his life. The gains did not make up for the losses. Moreover, in Song Qingshu's previous life, he rather admired Yanghua. He was arrogant and unruly, but he was born with a chivalrous heart. He spent his entire life fighting against the world. He was pitiful and respectable. What was even more admirable was that he was deeply affectionate. For more than 10 years, even if there were countless beauties who liked him and threw themselves at him, he only had Xiao Long Nu in his eyes from beginning to end. This simply made men so surprised that they could not close their mouths, and women so touched that they could not close their legs. Due to all these reasons, Song Qingshu finally chose to save Yanghua. "Ah, it's good that you are fine. I'm really sorry for what happened just now. I didn't mean it." Qing quickly ran over and looked at Yanghua up and down. She hurriedly apologized, and there was a hint of sobbing in her voice. "It's okay. Actually, I blame myself for being too stubborn. I didn't want to admit defeat earlier." Yanghua naturally knew what had happened, and he did not hate the girl in front of him at all. "But I almost caused your death. I really feel bad. How about? Qing's face suddenly revealed a look of struggle. "How about what?" Yanghua asked subconsciously. "How about I compensate you with a sheep?" Qing's face revealed an extremely pained expression. Yanghua felt confused, and he thought to himself, "Why would I want a sheep?" Song Qingshu, on the other hand, laughed so hard that his stomach hurt. He did not expect Qing to be willing to take out a sheep. It seemed that she really did feel guilty. However, she did not know that the most precious thing to her was meaningless to someone else. "Qing, I don't think you need to compensate me with a sheep. After all, Brother Yang did not really get hurt. Speaking of which, it could be considered as a blessing in disguise. During the process of the competition, you learned a mysterious martial art. You don't have to be too upset." Song Qingshu felt that it was necessary to come out and uphold justice. Otherwise, if the two of them stared at each other, who knew how long they would be in a stalemate? "Really?" Qing blinked her big eyes and looked at Yanghua. Of course. Yanghua nodded and couldn't help but look at his palm. "Thanks to the battle with Lady Qing, I learned such a magical palm technique. Your palm technique is really magical. I have never seen such a powerful palm technique. My chest still hurts." Qing pouted and couldn't help but rub her small chest. Song Qingshu looked at her airport-like chest and couldn't help but think, "You are so small, and you still hit me. If I didn't become a Wangzai Mantu, I would have become a poached egg." Lady Qing's sword technique really opened my eyes. This time I admit my defeat. Yanghua laughed. "However, the next time we meet, I may not lose to you." Yanghua felt that a new world of martial arts had opened in front of him. He felt that in the near future, his martial arts would definitely improve. "Okay, I will wait for you." Qing giggled. When the three of them were talking happily, a disharmonious voice sounded. "Qing, don't fall into someone's trap. What you need to do now is to heal your wounds and prepare for the next finals." Looking at the purple-clothed girl in front of him, Song Qingshu suddenly looked depressed. He thought, "Humph, I have to teach Yu Fei a good lesson. I can't let him be enchanted by Yuan Zi in the future. Hey, should I ask Yunzhong to sleep with this girl? Let's see how she can show off in the future." Thinking of Yunzhong He's pale face, Song Qingshu found that he was so pleasing to the eye for the first time. Sigh, now that I think about it, I'm really a bit shameless. Every time, I find all kinds of reasons to spare Yunzhong's life. Isn't it because I like his ability to assist me? Without this kind of perverted thief's indirect help, how can I get close to some girls so easily? Song Qingshu did not think that there was anything wrong with his little trick. His unique experience had formed a unique set of moral standards. He was neither good nor evil. He would not be a bad person who bullied others, but he would not be a gentleman who wronged himself. Qing was pulled away by Yuan Zi. Since Song Qingshu didn't say anything, Yanghua didn't say anything. Seeing Song Qingshu's thoughtful expression, Yanghua thought that he was thinking about the strategy for the next finals. Therefore, Yanghua hurriedly cupped his hands and said, "Brother Song, I'll leave first." I won't disturb you to rest and build up your strength. Brother Yang, please. Song Qing Shu didn't ask him to stay, but replied hurriedly. After Yang Wu left, Huang Rong walked over slowly and said, Prince Song, what are your chances of winning the competition later? Chapter 490. Being stared at by him, Huang Rong was flustered. She subconsciously replied, What does this have to do with me? Of course it does. Song Qing Shu smiled slightly. If Madam wants me to win, then I dare not to win. If Madam wants me to lose, then I dare not to lose. Huang Rong only felt that her heartbeat accelerated a little. But she had been through a lot after all. She recovered after taking a deep breath. Prince Song's ability to please women really impressed me. I hope that Miss Ah Qing will also suffer from this trick later. After that, without waiting for him to answer, she swayed and walked back, but inevitably looked a little embarrassed as she walked. Song Qing Shu did not intend to pester her. Looking at Huang Rong's beautiful back, he couldn't help but have a playful smile. It seemed that it was really good to occasionally tease such a good young woman. Ajio, I was right. Your brother Song must have taken advantage of our absence to tease Madame Guo again. Zhou Zhuo came over from a distance, followed by Zhu Yanai, who was also like a fairy. You speak as if he is only my brother Song. Zhu Yanai snorted slightly. Obviously, she was not willing to be teased by Zhou Zhuo all the time. My two beloved wives are back. How is it going? Song Qing Shu greeted them carelessly, opening his arms and hugging one in each hand. Who is your lovely wife? The two girls pouted coquettishly and hurriedly dodged. In fact, they didn't mind being hugged by Song Qing Shu. It was just that they couldn't bring themselves to be hugged by him in public. Song Qing Shu did not take it seriously. He asked with a smile, How is it going? Seeing that he was talking about business, the two women looked serious. Zhu Yanai took the lead and said, I have contacted the other leaders of the Golden Snake Camp. As long as Brother Song can win, Wangwu Sect and Qingqing Sect, Master Cheng of the Green Bamboo Stick, and the former Ming Dynasty Zongbing Shui Jian are also willing to completely submit to us. Before Zhu Yong could finish, Song Qing Shu could not help but ask, Didn't Shui Jian accompany his niece back to Jiangnan to bury his brother Shui Dai? Commander Shui knew that the matter this time was of great importance. He met up with the people from the Shui family of Jiangnan on the way here and spurred his horse back as fast as he could. That Lady Shui also expressed her understanding. While Lao AI was explaining, he suddenly exclaimed, I seem to remember that when we first met in Jinling City, that Miss Shui seemed to be in your room. The more Zhu Mingxi spoke, the clearer his memory became, and a strange smile appeared on his face. No wonder Chief Shui agreed so readily. I thought it was because of my identity, but I didn't expect that someone had already won Miss Shui's heart. Song Qing Shu's face turned red. Nonsense. I didn't do anything that time. You really didn't do anything? Seeing that he did not seem to be lying, Zhu Mengxi immediately frowned. In fact, I really hope that you have already done the deed, so that Shui Jian will be more reliable. This time, not to mention Zhou Zhuo, even Song Qing Shu was shocked. Aren't you jealous? Zhu Mingxi smiled and slowly told a historical story. In the past, Emperor Guangwu was trapped in Hebei. In order to get the support of Prince Xinding, he had to marry his niece, Guo Shangtong. With the help of Prince Xinding's 100,000 troops, he was able to rule the world. If Brother Song can get more support through marriage, I can't be more than happy. Why would I be jealous? Hearing Zhu Mengxi's words, Zhou Zhiruo suddenly fell into silence. Different from Zhu Mengxi, who was bent on rebuilding the Ming dynasty, Zhou Zhiruo's pursuit was not so big. She only wanted to glorify the Yimei Empire. For her dream, Zhu Mengxi could tolerate the existence of other women, but Zhou Zhuo might not be so broad-minded. However, Zhou Zhiruo had always been meticulous. She understood that Zhu Mengxi was so generous. If she showed a jealous look, she was afraid that it would be easy to be disliked. But if she did not show it, she would be too wronged. After thinking for a long time, Zhou Zhuo still did not have a clue. She could not help but feel annoyed. She could only take one step at a time. Song Qing-shu did not notice the change in Zhou Zhiruo's expression. He smiled and said, Zhou, your metaphor is a little bad. Guo Shengtong was later removed from the position of empress by Lu Xiao. Even Prince Jinding's family was uprooted on the charge of rebellion. Zhu Mingxi smiled sweetly. I believe that Brother Song is not that kind of person. Although I know that you are flattering me, you really make me happy. Come, such a sweet little mouth. I'm definitely going to kiss you. Song Qing-shu purposely made a threatening gesture, but Zhu Yanai dodged with a charming smile. Okay, there are outsiders watching. Let's get down to business. Zhu Mingxi pushed Song Qing-shu shyly and continued. Golden Dragon Gang's Jiao Weiner, Dragon Gang's Rong Kai, Flying Tiger Valleys Nye Tianfeng, and 72 Islands Zhongqiyun. The attitudes of these leaders are ambiguous. According to my guess, they are still watching. Song Qing-shu nodded. This is understandable. After all, it is easy to lose everything if you bet too early. As long as I can win in the end, I believe that these people will be easy to win over. Zhu Mengxi nodded in agreement. But the remaining four are not easy to deal with. Behind Thousand Willow Village is the Red Flower Society. Behind Evil Tiger Valley is the Sun Moon Sect. Behind Qingliang Temple is the Shaolin Temple. Behind Gai Mengshang and Meng Bofiai is Zhuolong Chan. These forces have deep grudges with Brother Song. I am afraid it is not possible to subdue them. Song Qing-shu's eyes flickered. Let's strike after the enemy has attacked. Let's see how they will make their move. The two women nodded. It was useless to think too much now. They could only do this for the time being. I have also secretly contacted the major sects who came to participate in the conference. The Wu-Tang sect, Tiandi Hui, and Mu Palace have all made it clear that they are willing to stay and help. Before Zhou Zhiruo could finish, Zhu Mengxi suddenly teased her. Sister, have you forgotten your Oname sect? Zhou Zhiruo blushed. Driving out the Tartars is naturally the responsibility of the Amaze sect. However, the sect is full of women. Although their martial arts are not weaker than ordinary soldiers, I am afraid that killing the enemy is not their strong point. Song Qing-shu patted the back of her hand. Don't worry, Zhuo. How can I be so stupid as to let them go to the battlefield to kill the enemy? I have already thought of the best arrangement for them. What? Zhou Zhiruo asked with concern. After all, although she spoke in a dignified manner, this time she involved the Amaze sect because of her selfishness. She did not want to lose any of her disciples. Of course, they will be battlefield nurses. Song Qing-shu's mind began to fantasize. If there was enough time, he would give them all a uniform. TSK. At that time, that group of men would look like they had been injected with chicken blood. Chapter 491. What's a nurse? The two girls were stunned by the strange term. Song Qing-shu finally recovered from the nurse's outfit. I'll explain this later. Zhiruo, what about the other sects? I didn't ask about the Red Flower Society and the Sun Moon sect, who obviously won't help. As for the Song Mountain sect and the Shaolin Temple, they talk nicely, but they don't promise anything substantial. I think they'll be lucky if they don't kick us when we're down. The most infuriating one is the Chuanjin sect. They usually claim to be the protectors of the Jianghu against foreign races, but when I contacted them this time, their answers were mostly perfunctory. I don't think they'll really contribute. Zhou Zhuo became angrier as she spoke, and her chest heaved up and down violently. Zhiruo, you must have suffered a lot from dealing with these sections. Song Qing-shu held Zhou Zhiruo's hand with heartache. Actually, it's not that bad. Zhou Zhiruo took a glance at Zhu Xiaoxiao next to her and pulled her hand back with a red face. All right, there's also the beggar sect, the Jiangnan beggar sect. Zhou Zhiruo paused and continued. Qing-shu, you also know that during the lion-slaying assembly, some of their elders were injured by us. When they saw that the roaming dragon gang they supported agreed to let you participate in the Golden Snake Gathering, I thought the hatred had been resolved. Who knew that when I went to them, I was almost besieged by them? This is really puzzling. Song Qing-shu laughed dryly. The reason was actually very simple. The roaming dragon gang was actually controlled by Zhao Min, so of course they agreed. As for the Jiang and Beggar sect, it was obvious that they were the kind that were still counting money for Zhao Min even after she sold them. Given the relationship between Zhou Jiruo and Zhao Min, Song Qingshu felt that it was better not to say it. Zhou Jiruo shook her head and quickly put aside the matter of the Jiangnan beggar gang. Although we can't win over the Jiangnan beggar gang, we can still win over the Xianyang beggar gang. Song Qingshu was stunned. The Xianyang beggar gang. Only Huang Rong and a few others were present. Obviously guessing his doubts, Zhou Jiruo quickly said, although the Xianyang beggar clan is small in number, Huang Rong's prestige is high. If she is willing to help, the Jiangnan beggar clan may temporarily put aside their personal grudges and fight against the foreign tribes together. Moreover, Huang Rong herself is a female zhuge who could devise strategies. She alone can fight against thousands of troops. But they might not help us, right? Song Qingshu said guiltily. How dare she not help? Zhou Jiruo's almond-shaped eyes widened. She snorted and said, doesn't she know who saved her? If she is ungrateful, don't blame me for revealing her weak and disheveled appearance at that time. Zhu Xiaoxiao could not help but laugh. Sister, don't worry. As long as Brother Song asks, he will definitely help. Seeing that the two women were on the same side, Song Qingshu wisely kept his mouth shut and let the two women bombard him. The prescribed time for rest soon passed. Huang Rong announced the official start of the final competition for the Golden Snake King. Looking at the man and the woman standing on the arena, the heroes in the field all had mixed thoughts. The leaders of the Golden Snake Camp were even more conflicted. On one hand, they hoped that Aqing would win. With her naive and adorable character, she would be an easy puppet to control. On the other hand, the Manchurian army was pressing on the border, and they urgently needed someone with real ability to lead them out of this difficult situation. In this way, it seemed that Song Qingshu was the better choice standing on the arena. Song Qingshu did not think so much. His first thought was that the Golden Snake Camp was really efficient under Qing's organization. In such a short time, they had built another arena. His second thought was to look at Aqing opposite him and could not help but ask, Sister Aqing, have you recovered from your injury? How can it be so fast? Aqing pouted and touched her faintly aching chest subconsciously. But it doesn't affect my strength much. Big brother, don't underestimate the enemy later. Hearing Aqing's words, the faces of the Red Flower Society members turned livid. Yuanzi also subconsciously covered her face. This silly girl. I have told her to show weakness to the enemy and make Song Qingshu let down his guard before suddenly becoming violent. Song Qingshu also reminded her seriously. Aqing, you also have to be careful. Because you are too strong. I may not be able to hold back later. I know. Aqing waved the green bamboo stick in her hand indifferently. Big brother, you are the best swordsman I have seen in the Central Plains. I have long wanted to fight with you. Glancing at the stick in Aqing's hand, Song Qingshu's expression suddenly became a little strange. Where did she get so many green bamboo sticks that are exactly the same? Are they similar to the automatic repair weapons in online games? Yes. Big brother, where is your weapon? Seeing that Song Qingshu was absent-minded, Aqing did not rush to attack, but kindly reminded him instead. Feeling Aqing's kindness, Song Qingshu could not help but smile slightly. A wooden sword suddenly appeared in his hand. During this period, Song Qingshu's martial arts had improved by leaps and bounds. Speaking of which, he had not used a weapon for a long time. However, in the face of Aqing, he did not dare to be careless. Seeing the wooden sword in his hand, Aqing's eyes suddenly brightened. At her level, of course, she would not judge a weapon by its appearance, not to mention that she used a bamboo stick. Hee, it seems that the green bamboo stick will not be damaged this time. Thinking that her green bamboo stick was either broken or smashed in the previous 2 rounds, Aqing was quite resentful. Ladies first. Aqing, you go first. Song Qingshu moved his wrist and pointed the wooden sword to the ground casually. Under the arena, there was a commotion. After all, Song Qingshu and Aqing's strength was obvious to all. This was the battle between the 2 top masters. Everyone in the arena opened their eyes wide, afraid to miss a single detail. In the Jianghu, the third-rate people were simply watching the show. Second-rate people hoped to learn one or two moves, which would probably benefit them for the rest of their lives. First-rate people wanted to compare their skills with each other and see if they could get any inspiration or even find a way to break the two's martial arts. However, the way Song Qingshu started just now was really, even the third-rate people in the Jianghu could see that Song Qingshu's body was full of flaws, so they all exclaimed. Only a few people in the arena did not react. Instead, they looked like they were thinking about something. Good sword technique, Ah Qing praised sincerely. Hearing Ah Qing's words, the Jianghu people were instantly at a loss. How could Song Qingshu's sword technique, which was full of flaws, be considered good? Guofu obviously had the same doubts. She quickly pulled Huang Rong's sleeve and said, "Mother, how is his broken sword technique good? Since Fu thinks that his sword technique is broken, how many ways do you think it can be broken?" Huang Rong did not answer directly, but asked a question instead. VIP Group 316289594. Need to take a screenshot to verify. Normal Group 337294925. Chapter 492. This move of his is full of flaws. I can easily think of a dozen ways to break it, Guofu said proudly. Huang Rong didn't deny it and continued to ask, "Then, how many ways do you think Lady Ah Qing has?" Guofu was shocked by Ah Qing's performance just now. She answered subconsciously, "If it's Miss Ah Qing, there are at least 1,000 ways to solve it." Huang Rong sighed and said, "Fu your cultivation level is still not high enough. You don't understand what it means to be full of flaws. In fact, it means that your entire body is flawless." Although Huang Rong's martial arts were not considered the best in Jianghu, that was only because she had a lively personality and it was difficult for her to calm down and concentrate on practicing martial arts. For all. V. Unspecified currency. Her aptitude for martial arts was 1 in a million, and her eyesight was even better. After all, since she was young, she was surrounded by the world's top experts. What she learned was the dog-beating stick technique and the Ninin manual, which are the top martial arts in the world of martial arts. Therefore, she could see a thing or two about the ingenuity of Song Qingshu's move. When the enemy was full of flaws, you had too many choices, and you couldn't help but hesitate. In a battle between experts, victory and defeat would often be decided in an instant. That was why Ah Qing wanted to move several times, but she didn't. Of course, this was only Huang Rong's own understanding. After all, due to the limitations of her cultivation, it was still quite different from the actual situation. From Ah Qing's point of view, Song Qingshu's casual movement of the wooden sword was indeed in accordance with the heavenly Tao. The flaws in the eyes of others were hidden murderous intents in her eyes. The successive moves were not flaws at all. However, Ah Qing was Ah Qing after all. Although he had some doubts, he still waved his green bamboo stick at Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu smiled and stabbed Ah Qing's left shoulder with his wooden sword. It was an attack while defending and a defense while attacking. It was a swift and fierce sword art that was both offensive and defensive. When Huang Rong saw this, she couldn't help but exclaim, "Good swordsmanship. It seems to be pretty good." Although Guofu's martial arts skills were not high, she could still see that this move was quite exquisite. I'm afraid that the sword techniques of these two can be firmly ranked among the top 3 in the world. Fu or Little Wu, study them seriously. I guarantee that you'll benefit endlessly for the rest of your lives. Yes, master's wife. Seeing Huang Rong's solemn tone, Guofu didn't dare talk back. Her beautiful eyes lit up as she looked at the people on the stage. As for Xiaowu and Xiaowu, they naturally wouldn't go against Huang Rong's intentions, and both of them watched with rapt attention. Ah Qing swung her waist and raised her green bamboo stick slightly, causing Song Qingshu's attack to miss. Instead, she stabbed towards Song Qingshu from another angle. Song Qingshu's swordsmanship is really good. He was able to break Brother Song's attack so easily. Zhu Yu frowned and couldn't help but worry about Song Qingshu. Don't worry. Since Qing Shu is so sure that he can win, then he will definitely win. Zhou Zhiruo's eyes shone with a strange light. Actually, the women had discussed how Song Qing Shu would win against Qing many times, but the final conclusion was that Song Qing Shu had little chance of winning. However, Song Qing Shu always vowed that he would definitely win, which made them even more curious. However, every time they asked Song Qing Shu what the method was, he just smiled and refused to reveal it. Seeing Qing's sword, Song Qing Shu also praised her in his heart. Before the move became old, he turned the wooden sword in his hand and pointed it at Qing's right shoulder. It was a wonderful move of defending with attacking and attacking with defending. Qing cried out in surprise. She felt that there was no flaw in the incoming sword. If she continued to stab, her arm might be broken. She had no choice but to use the bamboo stick in her hand to stab at Song Qing Shu's waist. This move was like an antelope hanging its horn, and there was no sense of obscurity at all. The people below the stage were dazzled by this move. Song Qing Shu smiled and said, "This move is wonderful." He immediately pulled back his sword and dodged to the side. The two of them exchanged sword attacks, and in an instant, they had exchanged more than 20 moves. The wooden sword and the bamboo stick had never touched each other. What shocked the people of Jianghu even more was that the two of them changed their moves so naturally, and the connection between the moves was so natural. They had obviously used more than 20 different styles of sword attacks, but throughout the whole process, it looked like they had only used one sword attack. Ever since Song Qing Shu's swordsmanship reached a high level, there were very few people who could make him use his sword so many times without achieving anything. When he thought about how his opponent was the best swordsman in the entire Golden Book system, he was filled with pride, and he used the exquisite parts of his swordsmanship one by one. Qing was also excited to see his prey. His green bamboo stick left an afterimage as he attacked Song Qing Shu. Throughout the whole process, it was as if the two of them had a tacit understanding and only used their moves and not their inner energy. The people of Jianghu below the stage all stared with their eyes wide open, afraid that they would miss a move or half a move. At first, when they saw Song Qing Shu and Qing fighting, they couldn't help but praise their swordsmanship. But after more than 10 moves, most of the people in the arena were already dazzled, and they couldn't understand the exquisite parts of their swordsmanship at all. Huang Rong, who was an expert at her level, had it a little better, but after watching for more than 30 moves, she started to feel a little tired. Every time she saw a move, she would have to think hard about the essence of the move, and only after thinking for a long time would she be able to understand it. But by then, the two of them had already exchanged more than 10 moves, and as for how the 10 moves were used, she was completely blind to it. Zhang Songshi and Yin Lighting looked at each other, and they both saw the shock in each other's eyes. They hadn't seen Song Qing Shu for a long time, but his swordsmanship was so exquisite, and that girl's swordsmanship was really like that of a fairy. Even if Zhang Sanfeng was here, he might not be able to beat the two of them in swordsmanship alone. Ling Huchang's mouth was wide open. He knew that the finals would be a duel between Song Qing Shu and Qing, and as the successor of the 9 strategies beyond the swords, he couldn't miss this shocking battle no matter what, so he ignored Rin Yingying's advice and endured his injuries to come to watch the battle. Lady Qing's swordsmanship seems to be taught by a fairy, but Brother Song's swordsmanship seems to have a bit of demonic nature. One is a sword fairy, and the other is a sword devil. It's really admirable. In terms of swordsmanship alone, there was probably no one below the stage who could compare with Ling Huchang. It was because of his profound attainment in swordsmanship that he could feel the exquisite and peerless swordsmanship of the two of them. In the beginning, he still had the desire to win, and felt that in terms of swordsmanship alone, he wasn't inferior to the two of them. However, as he watched, he couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Although the 9 strategies beyond the swords was said to be able to break all the swordsmanship in the world, it still required the opponent to have a move. The two of them on the stage, each move was like an antelope hanging its horn. In the beginning, Ling Huchong was still thinking hard, but later on he suddenly realized that the two of them had obviously reached the realm of no moves. Ling Huchong still remembered when Grand Uncle Master Feng taught him the 9 strategies beyond the swords. He subconsciously asked a question. If two experts who had no moves were to fight, how should the moves be broken? At that time, Grand Uncle Master Feng was obviously also stunned. It was obvious that he hadn't thought of this question. Now, Ling Huchong finally saw 2 experts who had no moves fight, but it was a pity that many of the methods that the two of them used to deal with the moves were still confusing to Ling Huchong. In the end, Ling Huchong couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seemed that only by reaching the realm of no moves could one truly understand. Chapter 493. On the other side. Yang Miaojin also had a pensive look on her face. Although she had previously felt that Song Qing's martial arts were higher than hers, there was a limit to it. Yang Miaojin felt that losing to him in the semifinals was more because the opponent was too shameless. As a woman, she was born to be at a disadvantage, so she was still unconvinced in her heart. However, now that she saw him compete with Qing in swordplay, unexpectedly not falling into a disadvantageous position at all. Moreover, the sword moves were exquisite. Even with her cultivation, she could not quite understand many of the moves. Only now did Yang Miaojin realize that the gap between her and her opponent was perhaps much larger than she had imagined. There were many people present who had the same thought. Xiancheng's brows were tightly locked as he looked at the 2 people competing on the stage. The shock in his heart was even greater. He was known as the number 1 person in the Shaolin Temple in 200 years. His vision was naturally incomparably high. Looking at the whole world, only Zhang Sanfeng, Wang Chongyang, and a few others were worthy of his attention. Although Song Qing had taken advantage of him several times, Xiancheng believed that it was only because the opponent was too cunning. If they were to really fight fair and square, he was confident that he could definitely kill Song Qing with one palm. However, when he saw the 2 people on the stage transform the rotten into the magical swordplay, and even some of the sword moves that even he could not see through, Xiancheng was deeply shocked. The strength of this stinky brat Song Qing was definitely not below his own. The faces of the Red Flower Society members were even more pale. They were the clearest about Qing's strength. In their hearts, Qing was a sword immortal who had descended to the world. They had originally thought that Song Qing would only return in defeat if he were to face her. Who would have thought that he could actually fight evenly with Qing and not be at a disadvantage at all? Tai Lai, do you think that you still have hope for revenge in this life? Yuaning faintly sighed. When Tai Lai's face was ashen, the muscles of his entire body tightened, but in the end, he seemed to have lost all his strength. He helplessly shook his head. Yuaning continued, a real man does not need to worry about not having a wife. Since Luo Bing has already been taken in by this boy, Tai Lai, it is better for you to give up as soon as possible. At the thought of his charming wife lying under another man's body, when Tai Lai's teeth were almost about to break. However, he was now clear that he might not be able to take revenge in this lifetime. Seeing that when Tai Lai didn't refute, Yuaning couldn't help but nod his head in praise. A man should be able to let go of things. After this meeting, if Qing wins, everything will be fine. We can use the power of the Golden Snake Camp to slowly take revenge. After all, no matter how high his martial arts are, he is only one person. When we have unified the world, we will naturally have a way to make him beg for death. What if Qing loses? When Tai Lai asked bitterly. Before this, no one in the Red Flower Society had ever thought that Qing would lose. But looking at the current situation, the outcome was only 50-50. Then let's go to the Western regions. Yuan Ting's eyes flashed. Now the Western regions is dominated by the Mongols, the Ming dynasty, and the Hui tribe. Especially the Hui tribe, the Shao and Zhua. I have a good relationship with them. If we can borrow the strength of the Hui tribe to unify the Western regions, then we can rise again. Okay, then we will go to the Western regions. When Tai Lai clenched his fists and said, gritting his teeth, They deliberately lowered their voices so that no one else heard them. Yuan Zi's attention was attracted by the fight in the arena. She couldn't help but ask with concern, "Grandfather, will Ah Qing lose?" Yuan Shao, the strange swordsman of Heaven Lake, also looked solemn. I didn't expect that this guy's swordsmanship was so brilliant. But Ah Qing hasn't used her innate sword chi yet. Z, you don't have to worry too much. Well, Sister Ah Qing will definitely win. Yuan Zi seemed to cheer himself up and clench his fists hard. At this time, the two people in the arena had exchanged over 100 moves. Different from before, Song Qing's figure gradually sped up. In the eyes of the audience, there seemed to be 5 or 6 Song Qings attacking Ah Qing in the center of the circle at the same time. They all felt worried for Ah Qing. "Oh no!" Zhou Zhirua cried in a low voice. Beside her, Ajo also looked worried but didn't refute her opinion. "Doesn't Brother Song have the upper hand now? Why are you two sisters so worried?" Zheng Ro couldn't help but ask. Glancing at Zheng Ro, Zhou Zhirua praised her inwardly. She's indeed a gentle and pleasant beauty. Although she was a little unhappy that Zheng Ro also wanted to be Song Qing's woman, she had to pretend to be graceful in front of Zhu Meng. So she explained carefully. In the beginning, Song Qing and Ah Qing were evenly matched. Now he has to rely on his body movements to fight against Ah Qing, which means that he is at a disadvantage in swordsmanship. In the arena, Ah Qing was forced into a flurry by his Song Qing's attacks. It seemed that Song Qing could teleport. One moment he was above Ah Qing, the next moment he appeared behind Ah Qing. When Ah Qing fought back, Song Qing moved to the side. If Ah Qing didn't have unfathomable attainments in swordsmanship, Ah Qing would have been wounded and killed on the spot. Yang Miaozhen stared at the scene unfolding in front of her. She had fought with Song Qing several times, but she could only block his attacks without being able to fight back because of his strange and swift movements. She was eager to know how Song Qing would deal with it. "We agreed to compete in swordsmanship, but you shamelessly used your body movements. Then I'll be shameless too." Ah Qing pouted, and her body spun on the spot like a spinning top. Streaks of green sword chi that could be seen by the naked eye dispersed in all directions. Previously, Ah Qing was trapped in a small circle by Song Qing and moved no more than 3 steps. But when Ah Qing used this move, 5 or 6 shadows of Song Qing all retreated. Although Song Qing tried his best to deal with the sword energies in front of him, the circle grew larger and larger. Finally, he could no longer trap Ah Qing and could only quickly retreat dozens of feet. "Your sword chi that fills the sky is the bane of my movement technique," Yang Kai said. Song Qing couldn't help but smile bitterly. Of course, this was only because they were in a special environment like the arena. If they were in a wide field, even if Song Qing couldn't attack, Ah Qing wouldn't be able to catch up to him. Song Qing's body movements would still make him invincible. Ah Qing wasn't in a hurry to attack. She controlled the sword energies to float around her and looked at him with a smile. "Big brother, if you don't have any other moves, I'm afraid you're going to lose." Ah Qing's words were like a heavy bomb thrown into the lake, and the crowd below the arena went into an uproar. Is the winner finally going to be decided? Zhou Zhirua and Zhu Yu looked worried. Clearly, their hearts were in their throats. They were so nervous that they subconsciously held each other's hands. At this moment, all the jealousy and fighting had been forgotten. They only had one thought in mind. Is my lover really going to lose? Song Qing laughed loudly and said, "Sister Ah Qing, actually, I know this move of yours." "You know it too?" Looking at the sword energies around her, Ah Qing couldn't help but be stunned. Chapter 494. Facing everyone's confusion, Song Qing Shu didn't explain much. He just opened his arms and slowly raised them up. What is he doing? The crowd was looking forward to Song Qing Shu's ultimate move. Who knew that after he raised his hands, there wouldn't be any strange phenomenon around him. There wasn't even any sword chi. They couldn't help but whisper to each other. Is he just posing? He is quite handsome, but he is all bark and no bite. I feel embarrassed for him. Chill. Maybe his sword chi is invisible. Didn't you see that lady Ah Qing didn't attack? That's because Lady Ah Ching is kind and doesn't want to embarrass him. The group of people were chatting enthusiastically when they suddenly heard someone exclaim, "Why is my sword moving?" "Mine too. It's shaking so much." Soon, all the people in the Jianghu felt the swords in their hands shaking. They all had expressions as if they had seen a ghost. After all, they were holding their swords in their hands and no one else had touched them, but they were shaking for no reason. So, so, a series of dragon roars rang out, and everyone in the arena was stunned to find that all the swords in their hands had flown out of their scabbards and were flying towards Song Qing-shu, standing upright in the air, a few feet around him. "It's him." This was everyone's first reaction when they saw this. How is this possible? This was everyone's reaction. After all, telekinesis was rare, but there were people in the Jianghu who could do it. Xiao Feng's dragon capture hand, Jiumaji's crane control art, even Ren Wuxing's absorb stars, they all had similar effects. However, telekinesis was usually only used to control one object. They had never heard of someone being able to control so many swords at the same time. In an entire Golden Snake conference, there were at least thousands of people who used swords as their weapons. Other than a few people who were strong enough to control their sword from being taken by Song Qing-shu, most of the people's swords were sucked into the arena. Song Qing-shu stood calmly on the stage, his arms slightly open. Tens of thousands of sharp swords circled a few feet away from him. Even Guo Fu and Yuan Zi, who had never been on good terms with him, even Yi and the others were dazed for a moment. They had to admit that Song Qing-shu was really amazing. Good. It was unknown who roared first, but everyone in the surroundings became excited. Presently, one of the two people on the arena was covered in Xiantian sword qi that was almost material, and the other was surrounded by hundreds and thousands of sharp swords that flickered with cold glints. Such a scene was something they couldn't even dream of, so how could they not be excited to be able to witness such a marvelous battle with their own eyes? Ah Qing's eyes also brightened. The strength that Song Qing-shu had shown was enough for her to use all her strength. Ah Qing didn't hold back anymore. She waved her bamboo stick, and the sword qi around her seemed to have a vent. It turned into countless green swords and stabbed towards Song Qing-shu on the other side of the arena. Song Qing-shu flipped his hands, and the thousands of swords that had been standing upright in the air seemed to have received an order. They fell down in an orderly manner, and the gleaming tips of the swords were aimed at Ah Qing, who was in the distance. Ding! 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 The swords controlled by Song Qing-shu clashed against the sword qi that Ah Qing waved. It was like real weapons clashing, and a clear dragon roar was heard. Every time they clashed, one of the swords controlled by Song Qing-shu would shatter inch by inch. At the same time, it also meant that one of Ah Qing's sword qi would disappear. The real swords and the sword qi hadn't been decided yet. Song Qing-shu and Ah Qing both moved. Song Qing-shu used his traceless sand treading with all his might. His entire body turned into a shadow. He grabbed the remaining sharp sword and attacked Ah Qing. Ah Qing used the same trick again. She spun like a top and rose into the air. Sword qi spread out in all directions like ripples. This time, Song Qing-shu did not retreat like last time. The sharp swords that were wrapped around his body were like armor, directly clashing head-on with the green sword qi. In truth, not many people in the tournament could keep up with Song Qing-shu's speed with their eyes. However, the hundreds and thousands of sharp swords circling around his body made him look like a giant silver-white python with its scales spread open under the sunlight. The Jianghu warriors below the arena could see his approximate movement trajectory clearly. The silver-white python coiled around Ah Qing and kept squeezing him. If it was someone else, they would have been minced in a meat paste by the hundreds and thousands of swords. However, Ah Qing was like a hedgehog with thorns all over his body. He shot out sword qi from all directions without any blind spots. The silver-white python would suffocate the hedgehog for a while, and then it would be shot by the hedgehog. Throughout the whole process, the Jianghu warriors couldn't see Song Qing-shu and Ah Qing anymore. They could only see countless sharp swords and green sword qi shooting all over the sky. Is this his real strength? Huang Rong's red lips opened slightly. She stared at the arena in disbelief. She couldn't help but compare Brother Jing to him. Brother Jing was good at martial arts, but if they really fought, is this the ultimate secret of swordsmanship? If I can experience this state for a moment, I'm willing to pay any price. Ling Huchong looked at the sword shadows in the arena with a fanatical expression. He couldn't help but murmur to himself. Rin Yingying, who was standing to the side, was angry and anxious. Was he willing to give her away? However, she quickly calmed down. After all, Brother Chong didn't have many hobbies except wine, gambling, and swordsmanship. What he said just now was just a casual remark. Not to mention, Rin Yingying's face suddenly turned red. If Song Qing-shu really wanted her, even if Brother Chong didn't give it to him, he wouldn't be able to stop him. Looks like Brother Song showed mercy last time at the inn. If he used this move, I'm afraid. Thinking back to the scene at the inn, Xiao Feng shook his head with a bitter smile. Standing next to Xiao Feng, Yilu Nanxian's beautiful eyes shone with a strange light. After witnessing this extraordinary battle, she faintly felt that her Sun Moon divine sword art was showing signs of a breakthrough. Remembering that the name of her sword art was given by Song Qing-shu, Yilu Nanxian couldn't help but reveal a beautiful smile. Brother Song is amazing. Zheng Ro put her hand on her chest and stared at the arena with starry eyes. She couldn't help but exclaim. Zhou Zhou secretly glanced at Zhu Xiao and saw that her face was flushed with excitement. She then glanced at Huang Rong and saw that Huang Rong had a faint smile on her face and Guofu had a look of admiration on her face. Zhou Ruo couldn't help but bite her lips. Qing Shu is going to capture the hearts of many young girls in this battle. It's really a headache for me as his legal wife. But he's really handsome now. Chapter 495. Su Zhu, who do you think will have the last laugh? The two of them were evenly matched, so Xian Chung couldn't see any clues. He couldn't help but ask Su Zhu. It wasn't that Su Zhu's eyesight was better than his. It was just that Su Zhu had fought against Qing before, so he had a more intuitive judgment. Reporting to Granduncle, I think Miss Qing will win in the end. Su Zhu stared at the two people on the arena and made his own judgment. Oh, why is that? Xian Chung asked in surprise. He knew Su Zhu's temperament. Since he said this, he must be very confident. I have fought Miss Qing before. Her innate sword energy seems to be endless, while the number of swords Song Qing can control is limited. Su Zhu didn't finish speaking, but Xianqing already understood what he meant. Right now, the two of them were in a stalemate on the stage. As time passed, the number of swords that Song Qing could control would only decrease. On the other hand, Qing's sword Qi would dissipate, but he could immediately replenish it. In the end, the victor would be decided. Sure enough, many people noticed that the silver python seemed to have shrunk a bit. The same thought flashed through their minds. It seemed that Song Qing was going to lose in this battle. Are you going to lose just like this? Looking at the situation on the stage, Huang Rong's expression was incomparably complicated. Suddenly, the faint smile on Song Qing's face appeared in her mind. Huang Rong's heart immediately calmed down. She believed that Song Qing would definitely have a way. Zhou Zhuo, who was not far away, also had a worried look on her face. After all, she had seen revered Ming fight before. In the end, even such a powerful revered Ming had been defeated by Qing. She really could not imagine that Song Qing would be able to win this fight. Little sister Ajio, Song Qing, is he going to lose? Zhou Zhiruo's voice trembled. No, Big Brother Song will definitely win. Zhu Yuai's face was filled with confidence. How do you know? Zhou Zhiruo was startled. Zhu Yuai smiled and said, because Big Brother Song said he would win. Zhou Zhiruo felt as if her heartstrings had been struck by a heavy hammer. Only now did she understand that although she was Song Qing's wife, her understanding and trust of him was not as good as other women. Zhou Zhiruo's heart was filled with endless shame. She had always wanted to establish her position as the legal wife and had always disliked Song Qing's flirting with other women. King Xiao, who do you think will have the last laugh between the two people on the stage? Yilu Nancian couldn't help but ask. After all, Xiao Feng was a god of war in Liao. Everyone in Liao had a deep-rooted trust in him. Yilu Nancian was no exception. Xiao Feng's eyes lit up as he looked at the situation in the arena. The current situation is indeed not in Brother Song's favor. However, he is someone who is good at creating miracles. He might be able to turn defeat into victory in the end. I think so too. Yilu Nancian smiled and nodded, but then she suddenly remembered Song Qing's palm on her chest last night, and her smile froze. Why did she want him to win? With a dragon's roar, the two figures on the arena finally separated. Ah Qing excitedly looked at Song Qing in the distance. Big brother, what kind of martial art is this? Ancestral sword. Ever since he had created this move, this was the first time he had truly used this sword. But even so, Ah Qing was still unscathed. The only difference was that the sword chi around his body seemed to be so dim that it was almost transparent. It was no longer green and almost solid like before. Song Qing's side was in a much more difficult situation. Most of the swords he controlled were broken, and now there were less than 10 swords still surrounding him. Ah Qing is indeed worthy of being the number one in gold. Song Qing sighed inwardly. He understood that in terms of pure martial arts, he was no match for Ah Qing. Big brother, you're the most powerful person I've met in the Central Plains. Ah Qing had a look of admiration on her face. Oh, Song Qing was not surprised. He smiled. Little sister Ah Qing is the most powerful person I've met in my life. Hearing his words, Ah Qing was a little embarrassed. Big brother, if you praise me like this, I won't hold back later. Song Qing faintly smiled. We don't know who will be the winner yet. Ah Qing looked at him with a smile. Just now you were the one attacking, so this time it's my turn. As soon as she finished speaking, everyone suddenly felt that familiar pressure, but this time it was much stronger than the last time she fought with Xuzhu. Even masters like Xian Cheng and Xiao Feng couldn't move for a while. Is this the legendary field domain? Xian Cheng was familiar with many martial arts manuals of Shaolin Temple, and this situation seemed to fit the description of Bodhidharma in a certain scripture. He couldn't help but be shocked. Was this Ah Qing a human or an immortal? All the people in the Shaolin Temple seemed to be frozen. They could only watch Ah Qing waving the green bamboo stick and stabbing towards Song Qing. Ah Qing's speed seemed very slow, but it seemed that in the blink of an eye, she had already appeared in front of Song Qing. The contradictory feeling of stillness and movement made everyone in the Shaolin Temple feel annoyed and disgusted. Many people with low cultivation had already suffered serious internal injuries. Song Qing lost. This was what everyone thought. Even Zhu Liao, who had the most confidence in him, had a trace of despair in his eyes. When the green bamboo stick in Ah Qing's hand was about to stab Song Qing's wrist, Song Qing suddenly moved. His wooden sword directly pressed against Ah Qing's white and slender neck. All the people in the temple suddenly felt their bodies become lighter, and the inexplicable pressure disappeared in an instant. Ah Qing's pretty face was extremely red, and her eyes were full of disbelief. How did I? Song Qing didn't answer. He just smiled and slowly withdrew his wooden sword. Ah Qing frowned and thought for a long time, but she still couldn't figure out what had happened. She could only sigh disappointedly. Alas, I lost. There was an uproar in the temple. Song Qing could actually turn the tide in that situation. How high was his martial arts? Xian Cheng's face was livid, and he was also confused. Just now, even he couldn't move, but Song Qing could move freely. Could it be that Song Qing's martial arts were actually far higher than his? This was impossible, impossible. Xian Cheng, who had always been proud and arrogant, couldn't accept this fact at all. He felt a sweetness in his throat, and a mouthful of blood couldn't help but gush out. Obviously, he had suffered a serious internal injury. Martial uncle. Su Zhu saw that something was wrong, so he hurriedly pressed his palm on Xian Cheng's back to help him sort out the messy, genuine qi in his body. Xian Cheng finally calmed down. Thinking back on what had happened just now, he couldn't help but be shocked. That person said that if he forcefully practiced the 72 ultimate skills, he would probably go crazy. Could it be that his words really came true? Not only Xiancheng was confused, but everyone in the Golden Snake Convention was also confused. What method did Song Qing use to turn the tide? Could it be that he used the soul-shifting technique? Huang Rong quickly denied this guess. The soul-shifting technique could only be used on people with lower martial arts. If it was used on people with higher martial arts, it could backfire and be controlled by the enemy. Judging from Ah Qing's martial arts, Song Qing would never dare to use the soul-shifting technique. Huang Rong's beautiful eyes curiously looked at Song Qing's back on the arena. How'd he do it? Chapter 496. While the crowd below the stage was still in shock, Xia Qingqing had already silently walked onto the stage and arrived in front of Song Qing. She half-knelt on the ground and presented the Golden Snake sword in her hand. Please accept the Golden Snake King's keepsake. Situ Bolei, Shui Jian, and Cheng Qingzhu of the Green Bamboo Gang also half-knelt in front of Song Qing. Young master, please accept the Golden Snake King's token. Song Qing did not immediately take the Golden Snake sword. Instead, he glanced at the other leaders of the Golden Snake camp. Feeling the oppressive gaze, the leaders who remained neutral, Jiao Weiner of the Jiangsu Golden Dragon Gang, Rong Kai of the Zhujiang Dragon Gang, Nie Tianfeng of the Flying Tiger Valley of Huainan, and Zheng Qian of the Alliance of the 72 Islands, felt their scalps go numb. At this time, Song Qing had just defeated Sword Immortal Ah Qing. His reputation had reached its peak. He stood on the stage like a demon god. The leaders looked at each other and couldn't help but curse. In fact, they didn't need to kneel in front of the new Golden Snake King. However, Xia Qingqing, the person with the highest status, knelt, and the other leaders followed suit. They had to kneel even if they didn't want to. The leaders helplessly walked up to the stage and half-knelt in front of Song Qing. Young master, please accept the Golden Snake King's token. Chu Honglu of the Thousand Willow Manor was backed by the Red Flower Society. Sha Tong Tian of the Evil Tiger Valley was backed by the Sun Moon Sect. Master Shi Li of the Qing Liang Temple was backed by the Shaolin Temple. Gai Mengchong and Meng Bofiai were backed by Zhuo Lengchan of the Song Mountain Sect. No matter which force it was, they couldn't stand on the same side of Song Qing. Some even had a blood feud with him. Amitba, Master Shi Li of the Qing Liang Temple, was the first to speak. As a monk, I've long been tired of the fighting and killing. I've been planning to go into seclusion to study Buddhism. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the right time. Now I can use this opportunity to announce that I've decided to leave the Golden Snake Camp and return to Shaolin Temple to study Buddhism. This old bald donkey didn't retreat earlier or later, but chose to retreat at this time. He obviously wants to attack Qing's prestige. Zhou Zhuan never had a good impression of the monks of the Shaolin Temple, so naturally, she would not show any mercy with her words. Obviously, Zhu Yushi had the same idea. He sneered and said, "This monk is obviously very worldly, but he pretends to be an enlightened monk. If he really wants to live in seclusion, why would he recommend Xuzhu to compete for the Golden Snake King?" Huang Rong frowned slightly. Great Master Shi Li's actions were clearly instructed by the Shaolin Temple. She knew that there was a rift between the Shaolin Temple and Song Qing, but this was only an internal contradiction. Now that the barbarians were wreaking havoc, it was obvious that they should put aside their former enmity and unite against the common enemy. Who knew that the Shaolin Temple would actually make such a move at this critical moment? With the status of the Shaolin Temple in the Wulin world, Song Qing might be in trouble this time. Huang Rong knew that if Song Qing handled this carelessly at this time, all his previous efforts would be in vain. Moreover, he had suffered such a big loss as soon as he came to the stage. How could he convince the public as the Golden Snake King in the future? Chu Honglu of the Thousand Willow Manor was about to step forward, but he found that Great Master Shi Li had stepped forward first. In this way, he was not so anxious. He sat up calmly and waited to see how Song Qing would deal with this. "Oh!" Song Qing stared at Great Master Shi Li sharply and asked, "Great Master, are you going to withdraw from the Golden Snake Camp?" "Yes." Great Master Shi Li proudly puffed out his chest. Although Song Qing's kung fu was high, he had the Shaolin Temple behind him. Moreover, the two peerless masters, Xin Cheng and Xuzhu, were not far away, so he naturally did not need to be afraid. Great Master, it was not enough that you killed the former Golden Snake King, Hero Yuan. Are you going to do the same thing again this time? Are you going to collude with the Manchurian Qing Tatters to kill me, the new Golden Snake King? Although Song Qing's voice was soft, it was like a heavy bomb that made everyone's expression change. Nonsense. Grandmaster Ten Powers immediately panicked. He couldn't bear such a big pot of shit. TSK, don't try to mislead people with lies. Xian Cheng could not sit still anymore. He stood up abruptly and slammed his Buddhist staff on the ground. The huge cracks on the stone floor showed how angry he was. However, people were born to love gossip. Everyone knew that Yuan Qingji had died at the hands of Invincible East at the Mount Time meeting, but no one thought about it in detail. However, after Song Qing's reminder, many people suddenly began to think about why Yuan Qingji had suddenly appeared at the Mount Time meeting and why the Manchurian Qing Imperial Court had ambushed Invincible East as if they had expected him to come. If there was a traitor in the Golden Snake Camp, all of this could be explained. Great Master surely couldn't have really killed him. Look at him. He looks like an enlightened monk. It doesn't seem like it. You don't know. You can know a person's face, but not his heart. The entire meeting was in a mess. Some believed it, and some didn't. As they listened to these discussions, Great Master Shi Li and Xian Cheng's faces became redder and redder. It was obvious that they could not control the anger in their hearts. Qing, you still need evidence to say such things. Zhang Songshi stood up with a solemn face. He also did not like Shaolin Temple. Not only had they always slandered Zhang Sanfeng as an abandoned disciple of Shaolin, but they had also caused Yu Deyin to be crippled and Zhang Chuishan and his wife to commit suicide. However, not liking them was one thing, and how to get along with them was another. Shaolin Temple was the leader of the righteous path. How could they casually frame others like this? Song Qing said unhurriedly, "Perhaps some of you here should know that when I was in the Manchurian Qing Imperial Court, I was in charge of this spy organization. I was responsible for winning over people in Jianghu. Many people in Jianghu turned to me for fame and profit. Great Master Shirley of Qingliang Temple was one of them." Nonsense. Great Master Shirley was so angry that his whole body trembled. For a moment, he was somewhat speechless. Song Qing did not give him a chance to defend himself. He quickly said, "Dare I ask Great Master Shirley, which temple did the fake Manchurian Qing Emperor Fu Lin lose his hair when he escaped to Buddhism?" This. Great Master Shirley was speechless for a moment. Fu Lin hiding in Qingliang Temple was an extremely secretive matter. Unfortunately, in order to get rid of Fu Lin, the fake Empress Dowager leaked the news, causing all sorts of evil people to cause havoc in Qingliang Temple. Now, it was impossible to hide it, even if you wanted to. So Qingliang Temple has long turned to the Manchurian Qing Imperial Court. Not to mention Qingliang Temple, I heard that Shaolin Temple has also accepted the conferment of the barbarian regime. People under other people's eaves have no choice but to bow their heads. Then why is this Great Master Shirley mingling with the anti-Qing Revolutionary Army all day long? It really is a bit suspicious. That's right. Do you think he really is a spy sent by the Manchurian Qing Imperial Court? Hearing the discussion of the people below the stage, Song Qing knew that the time was ripe. With a wave of his hand, a small box not far away flew into his hand. Song Qing took out a yellow brocade with his left hand and opened it in front of the crowd. This is the Imperial Edict of the Manchurian Qing Imperial Court, conferring the title of the monks of Qingliang Temple. The people below the stage had not yet digested this information. Song Qing took out another envelope and dropped a heavy bomb. This is a letter from Great Master Shi Li pledging his loyalty to the fake Emperor Kangxi. Great Master Shi Li could no longer sit still. He roared, "Everyone, don't believe him. This is a forgery." Song Qing's eyes narrowed. In a cold voice, he said, "Your Excellency has leaked many secrets of the Golden Snake Camp to the Tatar Imperial Court over the years. Not only did you cause the Golden Snake Camp to suffer heavy casualties, You even caused the former Golden Snake King to die a violent death on Mount Tai. For a traitor like your excellency who sells his country for glory, today I will clean up the sect. Chapter 497. Master Shirley's eyes were wide open. With his martial arts, how could he keep up with Song Qingshu's movement technique? He stood there like a wooden chicken, waiting for his death. Master Shirley's eyes were wide open. Fortunately, Xiancheng was prepared. Seeing Song Qingshu make a move, he quickly stood between the two of them. At this time, he did not dare to be careless. He waved his staff and used the Shaolin Temple's consummate skill, the exorcism staff technique. With the speed at which Song Qingshu flew over, Xiancheng believed that Song Qingshu had no choice but to fight him head-on. If it was a head-on confrontation, Xiancheng did not believe that he would lose to a martial arts junior after decades of hard work. Seeing Song Qingshu fly over like an arrow from a bow without the slightest intention of dodging, Xiancheng sneered and waved his staff towards Song Qingshu. Although Xiancheng was proficient in the 13 consummate skills, his most proficient and most powerful skills were still the Prajna Palm and the Demon Vanquishing Staff. He was confident that there was no one in this world who could take his Demon Vanquishing Staff without dodging and come out unscathed. Seeing that Song Qingshu was standing on the ground without dodging, the speed at which Xiancheng waved his staff increased by 30%. He vowed to take this opportunity to eliminate this disaster. Seeing that the staff was about to hit Song Qingshu, Xiancheng did not have time to be happy. He was surprised to find that Song Qingshu's whole body seemed to have become a leaf, light as a feather. With the strong wind brought by the staff, Song Qingshu's whole body floated to the other side. Xiancheng's confident blow had actually failed. Ignoring the stunned Xiancheng, Song Qingshu gently floated past him. Suddenly, he felt a strong wind coming from his side. It turned out that Xuzhu had been waiting for a long time. Seeing that Xiancheng had failed, he immediately made a move. Break up with one strike? Song Qingshu recognized this move. In the past, Murong Fu had suffered a great loss because of this move. But I'm not a trash like Murong Fu. Song Qingshu understood that the opportunity was fleeting. If he waited for these people to react, it would not be so easy for him to take Master Shirley's life under the protection of so many masters. Therefore, he did not dodge. He used Proud Dragon Show's remorse to block Xuzhu's palm with his left hand, and with a flick of his right hand, a wisp of sword chi shot into Master Shirley's head. How dare you? Xuzhu was shocked, but it was too late for him to stop. He could only watch as Grandmaster Ten Strength died on the spot. As soon as the sword energy ended Master Ten Strength's life, Song Qingshu's Proud Dragon Show's remorse, and Xuzhu's one-hit two scatters collided. The loud bang that Song Qingshu had expected did not sound out. His opponent did not have an earth-shattering palm force. Instead, it was replaced by a suction force that was like a black hole, endlessly devouring Song Qingshu's palm force. Dark North Divine Art? Song Qingshu sneered. This monk looked honest on the outside, but he was extremely sinister. When he fought against Murong Fu, he used the one-hit two scatters to make Murong Fu give up his exquisite moves and choose to fight him head-on. When he fought against Ah Qing, he saw that he was no match for Ah Qing, so he used the insidious hidden weapon, the life-death note. Now, it seemed like he was saving Master Shirley, but in fact, he wanted to take this opportunity to absorb Song Qingshu's strength. Song Qingshu didn't know why Xuzhu was so different from the original work, but with Zhang Wuji as an example, he was not too surprised. Either Xuzhu was also possessed by some old monster, but it seemed that he didn't have a backdoor like the Heaven and Earth Great Shift, so it was unlikely that he was possessed. Another possibility was that Xuzhu's time travel had caused a butterfly effect. Another possibility was that Xuzhu was not an honest monk. In the original work, no matter if it was Wu Yizi who passed the Jinlong Go game to him, or Wu Exin who absorbed 100 years of strength from Heavenly Mountain Tonglao and Li Qiushui in the royal palace of Xixia, no one else was there. Wu Yizi, Heavenly Mountain Tonglao, and Li Qiushui were all dead. Since Shuju was the ultimate beneficiary of each incident, the authenticity of everything he described was questionable. It was worth pondering whether it was Heavenly Mountain Tonglao who drugged a princess of Xixia and captured her to do shameful things day and night in an ice cellar. Moreover, Menggu, a virgin girl, was not afraid when she suddenly appeared in the bed of a strange man. Instead, she flattered him coquettishly. If he wasn't drugged, he would be willing to cut off his hand. Well, forget it, he would abstain from sex for 3 days. Song Qingshu admired himself. At such a critical moment, he could still let his imagination run wild. At this time, Shuju was even more bewildered. He had clearly touched his opponent's body and successfully launched the Northern Underworld Divine skill. But why couldn't he absorb any internal strength? Of course, Suju didn't know that Song Qingshu had already comprehended the realm of swallowing or spitting out, the realm of emptiness and reality. Just now, Song Qingshu had used emptiness, so how could Suju absorb inner force? Noticing the shock on Shuju's face, Song Qingshu sneered. He suddenly exerted his strength, and the fierce sword qi attacked Shuju's meridians. Seeing that the situation was not good, Shuju hurriedly withdrew his palm and retreated several feet before he could stabilize his body. Looking at his arm hanging down, Shuju's face turned pale. Fortunately, his opponent's sword qi had entered his body, so his arm was not crippled. However, it seemed that he would not be able to use his arm for a few months. Although Song Qingshu had described so much, the whole process was just a blink of an eye for the audience. They only saw a blur in front of them, and then they saw Song Qingshu easily dodge Xiancheng's full blow. Then he sent Shuju flying with one palm, took the life of Master Shirley, and finally returned to the arena. Grandmaster Ten's strength was not mediocre, and Xiancheng was the first person in the Shaolin Temple in the last 200 years. Shuju had also shown in the previous meeting, and his martial arts were not inferior to Xiancheng's. Yet, Song Qingshu was able to kill Grandmaster Ten powers and return in a flash from the hands of these two people. Just how terrifying was his strength? 10 steps to kill a person, 1,000 miles without leaving a trace. This poem by Li Bai suddenly appeared in Huang Rong's mind. When the matter is done, I leave in a flash, hiding my achievements and fame. Although Yelu Nanxian was not very good at Han literature, as a swordsman, she likely buys poem very much. At this moment, the same poem appeared in her mind. Sometimes this bastard is quite handsome, Yuan Zi thought, and her face suddenly changed. Bah! This despicable, shameless, lecherous bastard, full of lies, scourged the loyal, and forcibly takes someone else's wife. Yuan Zi was fooled by Song Qingshu on Mountamay, so she had a very bad impression of Song Qingshu. Later, when she heard what happened to the Red Flower Society and others, Song Qingshu successfully became a synonym for scum in her mind. At this moment, when she realized that her position had changed, Yuan Zi's face naturally changed. She was not the only one who felt the same way. Guofu stared at the person on the arena, her pretty face as beautiful as a peach. No one knew what she was thinking. Senior sister, brother-in-law, is so powerful. In the seats of the Mu Palace, Mu Jianping said with her big round eyes. Song Qingshu's martial arts were really beyond her imagination, and she couldn't think of any words to praise him. Chapter 498. The whole meeting was immersed in deep shock. It was Xiancheng's roar that broke the silence. Song Qingshu, how dare you kill innocent people? Song Qingshu glanced at him indifferently and said coldly, Master Shirley colluded with the Qing court. The evidence is conclusive. How can he be innocent? Xian Cheng held his breath. He had heard a little about the relationship between the Qing temple and the Qing court. It was not impossible for Master Shirley and the Qing to be in cahoots, but now that the Shaolin temple was clearly on the same side with Master Shirley, how could Xiancheng let Master Shirley bear this crime? This is just your side of the story. But you, how can you take out such a top-secret thing as an imperial edict and a secret letter. He couldn't bear to see Xia Qingqing kneeling on the ground. Song Qingshu waved his sleeves, and the 8 heads who were half kneeling on the stage felt a gentle force supporting them, and they involuntarily stood up. Casually helping everyone up, Song Qingshu replied indifferently, "When I was lurking in the Qing court, it was not difficult to find relevant information. Moreover, although Master Shirley is regarded as a treasure by your Shaolin Temple, in the eyes of the Qing court, people of his level are like carps crossing the river. There are countless of them. Why would they deliberately guard against his information?" Xian Cheng sneered. "Your Excellency became famous after assassinating Kangxi, but as far as I know, this assassination was not successful. Kangxi is still sitting peacefully in the Forbidden City. Do you think it is possible that this surnamed Song and Kangxi played a trick of injuring themselves to gain the confidence of the enemy, just to break into the anti-Qing army and completely clear the obstacles for the Tatars?" The first part of Xian Cheng's words were directed at Song Qingshu, and the second part was directed at the other people in the meeting. After his reminder, everyone felt that it was quite reasonable. It was not impossible for Song Qingshu to play a trick of injuring himself to gain the confidence of the enemy. Before Song Qingshu could answer, Xian Cheng continued, "I don't know if you remember, but after Song Qingshu assassinated Kangxi, Song Qingshu's heroic deeds seemed to be promoted all over the world overnight. If there was no mastermind behind the scenes, do you think it is possible?" "That's right, under the heavens, other than the Manchurian Qing Tatar Imperial Court. Who else has this kind of ability?" Yuan timely stepped forward to add another stab. The Red Flower Society had always been the backbone of the anti-Qing movement, and its reputation in Jianghu had always been very good. As the former Zongda Ozu of the Red Flower Society, Yuan's prestige was not below Chen Jinan's. Hearing him say this, more and more people began to have doubts. Song Qingshu could not help but smile bitterly. Sang Feihong's Five Lakes sect was known as a storyteller and performer in restaurants and on the streets all over the world. Although it could indeed spread his reputation quickly, it would inevitably arouse the suspicions of those with ulterior motives. Noticing Song Qingshu's expression, Xian Cheng sneered. "What? You have nothing to say?" Song Qingshu smiled and said, "As long as I defeat the Qing army, the rumors will fall apart on their own." Yuan snorted and said, "If you are a spy, this time you'll be leading the main force of the Golden Snake Camp to their deaths. It'll be too late for us to regret afterwards." Below the arena, Huang Rong looked worriedly at Song Qingshu. As intelligent as she was, she naturally knew that many forces did not want to see Song Qingshu take the position of the Golden Snake King. If they were not careful, all of Song Qingshu's previous efforts would go down the drain. The other leaders of the Golden Snake Camp who were not on good terms with Song Qingshu took the opportunity to make noise, especially Chu Honglu, who said in an enigmatic tone, "That's right. When the time comes, the Golden Snake Camp will be finished, and some people will have completed their tasks. Why would they care about us wandering ghosts?" As Chu Honglu spoke, he suddenly noticed that Song Qingshu's gaze swept over him. The sharpness contained in the gaze made his heart go cold, and he could not continue his words. Song Qingshu snorted coldly, and the inner force contained in the sound wave immediately silenced the whispering audience. "Actually, it's very simple to prove my innocence. Easy for you to say." Xian Cheng curled his lips, obviously not believing that Song Qingshu had any way to prove himself. Yuan's eyes flickered, and he decided that no matter what method Song Qingshu came up with, he would find a reason to oppose it. Huang Rong secretly broke into a sweat for Song Qingshu. This kind of thing would only make things worse. Did he really have a way to prove his innocence? Song Qingshu smiled, suddenly closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. Then, his voice full of inner force resounded throughout the mountaintop. "If K, Kangxi's mother, F K, Kangxi's wife." Hearing that Song Qingshu and all the women related to Kangxi had negative distance contact that went beyond friendship, the group of people in the meeting was immediately dumbfounded, and the women heard it even more so, blushing. This is indeed a concise and effective way to prove himself, but it's too shameless. Huang Rong secretly cursed. It's so disgusting. It's really hard to change a person's nature. Guofu looked at Song Qing-shu with disgust, and the good impression that she had just built up immediately vanished. Qing-shu isn't completely lying. At least, he played with that little tong in all kinds of positions. As soon as this thought appeared in Zhou Zhuo's mind, she subconsciously covered her face with her hands. How could I think of such a dirty thing? It's all Qing-shu's fault. I've learned bad things from being with him. Brother Song, you're right. Zhu Yaoyao looked excited. She was the one who hated the Manchu Qing the most. Not to mention that Song Qing-shu was just cursing. Even if Song Qing-shu really wanted to take action, not only would she not stop him, she might even help him. This Song Qing-shu is really... Yang Miaojin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. For a moment, she couldn't find any words to express her feelings of the moment. No wonder he could reach the pinnacle of swordsmanship. His straightforward nature is really admirable. Yellow Nanxian's eyes were shining. She was more concerned about swordsmanship, not to mention that Liao and the Manchu Qing were mortal enemies. No matter how harsh Song Qing-shu's curses were, she wouldn't mind. Senior Marshall's sister, brother-in-law, is so good. Mu Jianpain was also dumbfounded by Song Qing-shu's words. She couldn't help but poke Fangyi beside her. Princess, do you think those women don't deserve to be cursed? Don't forget, many people in the Mu imperial residence died in the hands of the Manchu Qing. Fangyi subconsciously defended her lover. Oh, you're right. Mu Jianpain nodded adorably. This B***** is really mean, dirty, nasty, shameless. Hearing Song Qing-shu's words, Yuan Zi was both ashamed and infuriated. She didn't have a direct hatred for the Manchurian dynasty. Therefore, it was difficult for her to share the same hatred for the Manchurian dynasty like Zhu Yingxi and the people of Mu Palace. She just felt that Song Qing-shu, a master in the master realm, was too shameless to swear like a hooligan in the market. Qing, who was at the side, pulled Yuan Zi's sleeve in confusion and asked innocently, Sister Z, what is beep? Chapter 499. Beep is a harmonious word, which means countless dirty words and actions. You're just a kid. Don't ask so many questions. Yuan Zi explained, but she didn't know where to start, so she pretended to be impatient. Oh, Qing nodded, not really understanding. By the way, Qing, you were about to win just now. Why did that bastard suddenly turn the tables? Yuan Zi suddenly thought of it and asked what had been puzzling her for a long time. I don't know why either. Just now, when I was halfway through my move, I suddenly felt my whole body heat up. There was a strange flow of heat inside my body. I don't know why, but my body went limp. Thinking back to that strange feeling, Qing's little face turned red again unconsciously. Did this bastard use some kind of poison? How shameless! Yuan Zi was so angry that she trembled all over. However, she was a virgin after all, so she didn't know that Qing's symptoms were not caused by poison at all at this time. Song Qing-shu, who was standing on the arena, cleared his throat and continued. In this way, no one will think that I'm a spy, right? The crowd nodded in agreement. Song Qing-shu's words just now were undoubtedly a crime of great disrespect. His 9 generations would be implicated. If he was really a spy, based on his words just now, no matter how great his meritorious service was, he would not be able to escape death. Naturally, no one would believe that he was a spy sent by Kangxi. Looking at Xian Cheng's livid and silent face, Song Qing-shu smiled disdainfully. Master Xiancheng, you just swore that Master surely didn't collude with the imperial court. Do you dare to swear in the name of Buddha that if he colluded with the imperial court, all the monks of Shaolin Temple would not be able to enter the Western Paradise after Parinirvana and would all be sent to hell? Xian Cheng's face turned red. Although he didn't think that Master Shirley would be a spy of the Manchurian imperial court, it was an indisputable fact that Qingliang Temple accepted the imperial court's conferment, so he dared not make such a vicious oath. Humph, let's go. Xian Cheng snorted angrily. Knowing that staying here would only add to his troubles, he decisively turned around and left with the monks of Shaolin Temple. Old leader you, do you want me to tell the public what you've done? After forcing Xian Cheng away, Song Qingshu turned around and stared at the people of Red Flower Society. This was actually a good time to eradicate the Red Flower Society. However, although the Red Flower Society was going against him, other than Yu Wanning and a few others, the rest were all men of steel. Song Qingshu was not a heartless butcher. Secondly, although he was very clear about Yu Wanning's plot, he did not have conclusive evidence. If they really fought, it would not end in a short period of time. Thirdly, Ah Ching was still in the Red Flower Society's camp. After a while, Yu's long-faced Cheng He. Now that Xian Cheng had left, it was useless for him to stay here alone. He had made up his mind to counterattack the Central Plains with the help of the Tianshan Hui tribe in the future. At that time, he would wash away the shame brought to him by Song Qingshu. Being pulled away by Yuan Zi, Qing couldn't help looking back at the figure in the arena. Big brother, will you come to the western regions to see me in the future? Yes, I will definitely come to see you. Song Qingshu's eyes sparkled. The Tianshan Hui tribe's big and small Hajua, the Guangming peak of the Ming dynasty. Hearing Song Qingshu's promise, Qing laughed happily and waved at him excitedly. This brat is really good at seducing women. Seeing Qing's reluctant look, Huang Rong had mixed feelings. If Qing is really taken by her, who in the world can be their match when they join hands? Zhu Yaoyao and Zhou Zhihua couldn't help but look at each other. Seeing the jealousy in each other's eyes, Zhu Yaoyao teased, Sister Zhou, if Qing bullies me in the future, you have to help me. Zhou Zhihua blushed. Her martial arts are so high that I can't even protect myself. Who would care about a little girl like you? Having successfully chased away the two biggest opposing forces, Song Qingshu turned around and looked at the remaining 3 Golden Snake Camp leaders who were sitting upright on their seats. It seems that you don't agree with me taking up the position of Golden Snake King. Hearing his words, Chu Honglu of the Thousand Willow Village, Sha Tong Tian of the Evil Tiger Valley, and Gai Mengchong and Meng Bofiai of the Evil Tiger Valley felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. They hurriedly got up and knelt down. Golden Snake King. When the 3 knelt down, they exchanged glances and understood each other's intentions. What a joke. Song Qingshu had just taken Master Shirley's life in the blink of an eye. Who knew if they would be killed on the spot if they objected? The forces behind the 3 of them made it impossible for them to be in the same pot as Song Qingshu. Therefore, the 3 of them decided to obey on the surface so that he couldn't find a chance to attack them. In the future, there would be plenty of opportunities to oppose him. The rolling eyes of the 3 of them didn't escape Song Qingshu's eyes. Even if Song Qingshu didn't have the ability to read minds, he roughly knew what they were thinking. However, he didn't care. In the face of absolute strength, conspiracies and tricks were nothing but a joke. Moreover, he had already thought of a way to deal with this group of people. Apart from the dead Master Shirley, the remaining 11 leaders of the Golden Snake Camp expressed their loyalty to him on the surface, even though they each had their own ulterior motives. Therefore, the coronation ceremony for the Golden Snake King soon began. However, due to the presence of a strong enemy, the ceremony was simplified. During this period, Wudong and Mei took the lead to express their willingness to stay and help the Golden Snake Camp to deal with the invading Qing army. The Mu Palace followed suit. Although the Tiandi Hui and the Red Flower Society had a close relationship, Chun Jinan was a man who could distinguish between personal enmity and righteousness. Moreover, he was on good terms with Song Qingshu and had Agio, so he naturally agreed to stay and help. Ren Yingying was now afraid of meeting Song Qingshu face to face. She used Ling Huchang's serious injury as an excuse and hurriedly left the mountain with her followers. Of course, the Sun Moon Divine cult was not a righteous warrior against the Qing. If Ren Yingying stayed and helped, it would be strange. Perhaps people would misunderstand that she had an affair with Song Qingshu. At the lion-slaying grand meeting, Song Qing-shu and Zhou Zhiruo had formed a great enmity with the beggar clan. Naturally, the beggar clan's people did not have a good expression on their faces. Looking at Huang Rong's face, they congratulated him a few words, but asking them to stay and help resist the Qing army was out of the question. The Songzhan sect had always been enemies with Song Qing-shu, so naturally they would not stay. After the ceremony was over, they hurriedly left the mountain. The Chuanjin sect's people used the excuse that Qiu Jichu was seriously injured and needed to return to Chongyang Palace to recuperate. After the ceremony was over, they also hurriedly left. The remaining people were mostly roaming soldiers. Some stayed to help, some left. However, only a small portion chose to stay. After all, this time the Manchurian Qing had mobilized 100,000 troops. One person's urine could easily drown a large Walin sect. These Jianghu ruffians did not dare to take their own lives as a joke. Chapter 500. Song Qing-shu's eyes brightened. He cupped his hands and thanked Xiao Feng. With King Zhao's help, I have more confidence. Xiao Feng smiled. Liao was sandwiched between the Jin kingdom and the Qing kingdom and was in a precarious situation. Although Liao had shown signs of revival under his leadership, there was still a huge gap between the Jin kingdom and the Qing kingdom in terms of national strength. It was fortunate that they could protect themselves, but they were unable to recover their lost territory. This time, the Qing kingdom had launched a crusade against the Golden Snake camp. Xiao Feng did not want to sit back and do nothing, so he quietly went south to the Golden Snake camp. His initial plan was to protect the Golden Snake camp from being annihilated by the Qing kingdom. Now that he saw Song Qing-shu suddenly become the new Golden Snake king, Xiao Feng sensed an opportunity. Maybe this time, he could make the Qing kingdom suffer a setback. However, the kingdom of Liao was currently in a truce with the Manchurian Qing dynasty. To be more precise, it was a truce with Wu Sangui. However, Xiao Feng still felt that it was not convenient for him to help Song Qing-shu as the king of the South Yard. Therefore, he declared that he would only participate in the war in his own name. Song Qing-shu naturally did not mind. I wonder if 4th Nyangzi is willing to help. Seeing that Yang Miaozhen had not left, Song Qing-shu felt more confident. However, she was a woman. He could not let her take the initiative to ask for his help. He still had to give her face. As expected, Yang Miaozhen smiled. She did not reject his invitation, but she did not agree either. I wonder what benefits I will get if I help. Song Qing-shu showed an embarrassed expression. If 4th Nyangzi doesn't mind, I can repay you with my body. Even though Yang Miaozhen was used to all kinds of boorish men in Jianghu, she still could not resist Song Qing-shu's shamelessness. She blushed and hurriedly said, "Who want your body? As long as you promise to do one thing for me in the future, I will stay and help you once." It's this kind of play again. It's not easy to owe a favor. To Yang Miaozhen's surprise, Song Qing-shu didn't rush to agree. Instead, he asked, "How many people did the 4th lady bring this time?" 300. Yang Miaozhen said proudly. Although there aren't many of them, they're all the most elite warriors of the Redcoat Army. 300 people in exchange for a favor from me? This is a bit of a loss. Seeing Yang Miaozhen's frown, Song Qing-shu changed the topic. But even if it's only 4th Nyangzi, it's worth it. Okay, deal. Yang Miaozhen was furious in her heart. Originally, she was about to turn around and leave, but when she heard the second half of his compliments, her expression softened a little. She could not help but snort to express her dissatisfaction. Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly to himself. To be honest, he really didn't want to owe favors so easily. In the original, the Heaven Sword and Dragon Saber, Zhang Wuji owed Zhao Min 3 favors and was almost killed by her. However, now that he had suddenly become the leader of the Golden Snake Battalion like a paratrooper, the leaders of the various mountains all had ulterior motives. Although he wasn't a loner, he wasn't much better off. Naturally, he had to make full use of all the forces he could use. Seeing that they had so many strong reinforcements, Zhang Songshi and Yin Lighting looked at each other and were extremely gratified. Suddenly, they noticed that Huang Rong was standing at the side with a faint smile on her face. Zhang Songxi's heart skipped a beat. If he could get the help of this female Zhuge, then Song Qingshu would have a higher chance of surviving this crisis. Thus, he took the initiative to invite her. I wonder if Madame Guo would be willing to stay and help us. This, Huang Rong looked awkward. After all, there was such a big scandal between the two of them. If she were to stay and help him, then it would become a bad name in the pugilistic world. Madame's wisdom is unparalleled. If you're willing to stay and help, Song Mao would be extremely grateful. Song Qingshu came in front of her with a sincere expression. Huang Rong was keenly aware that the way Song Qingshu asked her was somewhat different from the way he asked Yang Miaozhen. He asked Yang Miaozhen if she was willing to stay, but he asked her with a sincere invitation. It was clear at a glance who was more important to him. In fact, according to Huang Rong's personality, at this time, she would take the opportunity to blackmail him and extract some benefits. However, now that she had become the respected Madame Wu, she still had to take care of her face and her behavior. Yang Miaozhen was originally a female mountain bandit, so no one would be surprised if she talked about conditions with him. However, if she also talked about conditions at this time, it would be too. Huang Rong was depressed. In fact, with her intelligence, it was very easy for her to find a reason to refuse. Moreover, she would not be criticized by other sections. For example, Song Qingshu had killed an elder of the beggar gang. As the former beggar gang leader, she could not disappoint the beggar gang members. Or, now that the Southern Song dynasty had signed an alliance agreement with the Manchurian Qing dynasty, her identity was sensitive. If the two countries were to go to war again because of this, it would be difficult for her to absolve herself from the blame. In that instant, Huang Rong's mind flashed with a few different reasons to decline, but in the end, she still nodded her head. Now that the Manchurian Qing are wreaking havoc in the Central Plains, we Han people should help each other out. I will not shirk my duty. Originally, she was going to say that the northern foreign tribes were wreaking havoc in the Central Plains. Halfway through her words, she keenly realized that Xiao Feng and his group were also present. She hurriedly changed her words. However, Xiao Feng was an open-minded person, so he smiled slightly and did not mind. Thank you for your kindness, madam. Song Qingshu was immediately overjoyed. What was kindness? Huang Rong had a strange expression on her face. She felt that he had deliberately used such an incomparably ambiguous term. However, seeing his righteous expression and the lack of reaction from the others, Huang Rong felt that she might be thinking too much. Just as Huang Rong was worrying about personal gains and losses, Song Qingshu invited them and the leaders of the Golden Snake Camp to the hall to discuss matters. This time, I mainly want to hear everyone's opinions on how to deal with the encirclement and suppression of the Manchurian Qing dynasty. Sitting on the chair at the head of the hall, Song Qingshu was a little excited. However, he soon laughed involuntarily. He had even sat on the dragon throne, so this chair was nothing to him. Hearing Song Qingshu's inquiry, the people who stayed behind to help looked thoughtful. They were not in a hurry to express their opinions. The leaders of the Golden Snake Camp were not sure about Song Qingshu's intentions, so they did not dare to speak for a moment. Thinking that he had long pledged his loyalty to the 5 Mountain Sword faction's left alliance leader, Gai Mengchong and Meng Bofiai understood that it was time for them to do something. After all, they could not really let Song Qingshu completely subdue all the mountains. Meng Bofiai had always been kind and charitable, and was quite famous in Jianghu. He was not afraid that Song Qingshu would suddenly make things difficult for him. So he coughed and said in a clear voice, I think we should follow the old practice and divide the troops into small groups and hide in the mountains. Although the Tatar army is powerful, it consumes the Tatar imperial court's money and provisions every day. They will withdraw before long. Listening to him, Huang Rong frowned slightly. Although Meng Bofiai's words were not without reason, there was not the slightest hint of respect in his tone. It was obvious that he did not take Song Qingshu, the new boss, seriously. Moreover, he was deliberately mentioning the old practice for Song Qingshu, who was a latecomer. Huang Rong could not help but look worriedly at Song Qingshu. She was worried that he would choose to attack without saying a word. After all, with the methods he used to deal with Grandmaster Shirley, it was not impossible. Chapter 501. Contrary to Huang Rong's expectations, Song Qingshu did not express any opinion on Meng Bofiai's words. He just sat there enigmatically, neither agreeing nor disagreeing. Meng Bofiai nodded. As if it was prearranged, Wang Wupai's Situbule opened his mouth and said, "Brother Meng's words are wrong. As the saying goes, times have changed. This time, each of our mountains elected a new Golden Snake King to change the situation of hiding from place to place. If we continue to act like before, what's the point of us painstakingly choosing a Golden Snake King?" With Meng Bofiai taking the lead, Chu Honglu also had less misgivings. He sneered and said, "If you want to change the situation, you have to combine it with reality. Right now, the Manchurian Qing's 100,000 troops can drown us with just one spit from each of them. Choosing to fight head-on instead of thinking of ways to preserve our strength is the behavior of a boorish man." Huang Rong secretly nodded. Although Meng Bofiai and Chu Honglio's original intention was to attack Song Qingshu's prestige, it had to be reasonable. Right now, the Golden Snake camp only had 30,000 people. Most of them were a motley crew. Moreover, they were under different leaders. It was very difficult for them to truly work together. If they fought head-on with the Manchurian Qing, it was likely that they would be annihilated. While Huang Rong was deep in thought, Shui Jian could not help but snort and said, "Every time the Qing troops come, we run. Since it's like this, what's the need for our Golden Snake Camp to exist?" Think about how awe-inspiring the Golden Snake Camp was under young Master Yuan's leadership. At that time, it was the Qing troops who heard our movements and fled. Now humph. Sha Tong Tian put on a fake smile and said, "Things are different now. The Golden Snake Camp is not as grand as it was then." Cheng Qingzhu chuckled and said, "The reason why the Golden Snake Camp has declined to this day, I'm afraid Chief Shan knows best." Sha Tong Tian immediately became angry. "The one with the surname Cheng, what do you mean?" Cheng Qingzhu was originally not on good terms with him. Now that he had this layer of relationship with Agio, he was even less afraid of him. He directly replied, "When the news of young Master Yuan's death came back, I don't know who was the first to instigate internal strife, causing all the mountains to kill each other." Sha Tongtian's face immediately turned red. "According to you, all these years, everyone has been beating each other. I am to blame?" Huang Rong couldn't help but glance at Song Qingshu. Seeing that he still didn't say a word, she couldn't help but secretly nod. The most taboo thing for a leader is to throw out his true thoughts all at once. It's very easy to cause a strong backlash from the opponents, and there's no room for maneuver. The most effective way was to secretly reveal his intentions through the mouths of his trusted subordinates, letting the various factions under him fight over it. Then, the leader would be able to appear with a detached attitude and take sides. Who would have thought that not only is Song Qingshu's martial arts so strong, but he is also so good at controlling his subordinates? Brother Jing really can't compare to him. Huang Rong secretly sighed in her heart. Although Jing Ge had his unique charisma, his personality was really not suitable to be a leader. After all, not everyone was as devoted to the country and its people as he was. Those people all had their own pursuits. They liked beauties, wealth, or fame, and Jingu always used such illusory things as national righteousness to win them over. In a short period of time, he could use his own charisma to cover everything. But as time went on, these years, if it were not for Huang Rong's secret dealings, no one knew how many forces in Xianyang City would have germinated the idea of rebellion. Huang Rong was startled. Why did she keep comparing Brother Jing to Song Qingshu for the past 2 days? Brother Jing was her husband, but who was Song Qingshu? Huang Rong's pretty face suddenly turned red. In a trance, she seemed to hear someone calling her. "I don't know what Mrs. Gu thinks of the current situation." Huang Rong finally came to her senses and found that everyone in the meeting hall was looking at her. She could not help but panic. It turned out that when Song Qingshu saw that everyone was arguing, he timely stopped them and kicked the topic to Huang Rong. He knew in his heart that with Huang Rong's cold personality, she must know what he was thinking and would not say anything to ruin his show. And with Huang Rong's reputation in the martial arts world, if she expressed her support, then his next move would be twice the result with half the effort. Huang Rong was in a daze and did not expect Song Qing-shu to suddenly throw a difficult problem at her. She was in a mess and could not think of anything. Fortunately, she was quick-witted and quick-witted. She said, King Xiao has fought countless battles with the Manchurian Qing over the years and must be more familiar with their situation. Let's listen to King Xiao's opinion first. Chief Huang is too modest. Xiao Feng politely said a few words and began to talk about his opinion. After all, as a person of Liao, he naturally hoped that the Manchurian Qing army would delay here for as long as possible. Everyone here should have heard of the saying, if the Jurchens do not have 10,000, the Manchurian cannot defeat 10,000. According to our intelligence, the Manchurian Qing army of 100,000 are all elite soldiers of the Eight Banners. Halfway through Xiao Feng's words, Chu Honglu seemed to have received support and said excitedly, I knew it. The strength of the Manchurian Qing army is not something we can contend with. It is better to discuss a retreat as soon as possible. Song Qing-shu sneered in his heart, but did not show it on his face. He said indifferently, let's listen to King Xiao first. Chu Honglu also realized that he had been rash. With Xiao Feng's position in the martial world and his status as the king of the southern courtyard of Liao, there was no room for him to interrupt. He could not help but smile in embarrassment to cover up the awkwardness in his heart. Xiao Feng smiled at Song Qing-shu and nodded. He then continued, if the 100,000 elite soldiers of the Eight Banners attacked 20 years ago, I would definitely suggest that everyone quickly pack up and run as far away as possible. Yang Yaozhen's heart skipped a beat, and she unconsciously asked, could it be that King Xiao means? That's right. The soldiers of the Eight Banners 20 years ago were indeed a strong and brave army. However, Xiao Feng stood up and said with a disdainful manner, ever since the Manchurian Qing invaded the pass, the disciples of the Eight Banners became addicted to the riches of the Central Plains and have long since degenerated. Today's so-called elite soldiers of the Eight Banners are not even comparable to the Green Camp of Jiangnan, let alone the Guaning Iron Cavalry under Wu Senge. Therefore, although the momentum of the Manchurian Qing army this time is vast and mighty, the Golden Snake Camp may still have a chance. Xiao Feng was also very puzzled. He originally thought that Kangxi was a man of great talent and strategy. Who knew that he would actually make such a stupid move this time? Could it be that he grew up in the depths of the palace? He really did not know to what extent the combat power of the Eight Banners had degenerated to. Song Qing-shu was secretly pleased. This time, the army recruited all the disciples of the Eight Banners. It was a clever move that he and Dongfang Muxue came up with together. After all, other than a few wise people, very few people realized that the Eight Banners army was strong in appearance but weak in reality. Even the important officials of the Manchurian Qing court believed that once the elites of the Eight Banners were deployed, this encirclement and annihilation of the Golden Snake Camp would definitely be victorious. Suddenly, he looked at the chapter count and realized that it was actually 500 chapters. He had reached 500 chapters. Was 1,000 chapters still far away? He had something to do tomorrow morning, so he would only finish this chapter today. Chapter 502. Does King Xiao mean that we should fight against the imperial army? Meng Bofiai frowned. He was used to being a rich man and was not willing to take such a big risk to fight against the Manchurian Qing. Xiao Feng smiled and said, fighting or retreating is your Golden Snake Battalion's internal matter. I am only helping to analyze the strength of the Manchurian Qing army. Madame Guo has always been known as the female Zhuge. Do you have any suggestions for our current situation? Song Qing dragged Huang Rong into the conversation when he saw that she was just doing nothing. In Song Qing's mind, Zhao Min was a more suitable military counselor than Huang Rong. After all, Huang Rong's biggest characteristic was her quick wit. In terms of adaptability, Zhao Min was not as good as Huang Rong, but in terms of grasp of the future situation, Huang Rong was obviously not as good as Zhao Min for all greater than or equal to, square root dollar. Square root using the weather forecast in his previous life as an example. Huang Rong was more accurate in predicting the weather within a few hours, but Zhao Min was more accurate than Huang Rong when it came to predicting the weather 3 to 5 days later. This difference was not due to the difference in their intelligence, but the environment in which they grew up and their status. As a princess, Zhao Min had almost unlimited resources and information at her disposal. Naturally, she could make arrangements calmly. On the other hand, Huang Rong was limited by her identity and did not have enough information. Moreover, she was born in the martial arts world and did not have a natural layout. Naturally, she could only adapt to the situation. However, Zhao Min's noble identity had a side effect. She was usually protected by countless martial arts masters, so she would not encounter any danger. If she was suddenly put in a dangerous situation, she might not be able to escape like Huang Rong. Huang Rong escaped from the masters of the Zhao Mansion, dealt with Ouyang Ku and his son on the deserted island, and protected Guo Jing from being discovered in Ox Village. Every time was thrilling and dangerous. It was all because of Huang Rong's quick wit that they got through the difficulties. If Zhao Min was in Zhao Min's shoes, it would be difficult to achieve the same result. Similarly, Huang Rong could not be like Zhao Min and easily destroy the 6 great sections. She could not use black jade body connection ointment to toy with Zhang Wuji in the palm of her hand and easily tie him up for life. It's a pity that last night, Jiu turned the tide and made Zhao Min return empty-handed. He was even chased by the martial artists. Now, no one knows where he is hiding. Song Qing secretly regretted, but to be honest, if Zhao Min really came to be his military counselor now, he really didn't dare to believe her, or he would be sold again. After the buffer, just now, Huang Rong had already sorted out her thoughts. She bowed slightly and said in a pleasant voice, "Even though the combat power of the 8-banner soldiers has decreased, the strength of the Golden Snake Battalion is also not the same as before." The mountain leaders on the field blushed. They knew that Huang Rong was only saying this to save them some face. The Golden Snake Camp was in a state of disunity and could be described as a motley crew. Therefore, the current situation is still that the enemy is strong and we are weak, Huang Rong continued. Therefore, our primary strategy is still to retreat. Chu Honglu and the others revealed a happy expression. They couldn't help but cast a provocative glance at Song Qing, thinking that with Huang Rong's reputation in the martial arts world, since she had already said so, what else can you do? If you can't even follow your first order, who in the Golden Snake Camp will still listen to you in the future? Who knew that Huang Rong's next words would make the smiles on their faces freeze? However, even though this time we are to retreat, we must fight a battle with the Manchurian Qing Tatars, and it must be a beautiful victory. Song Qing was secretly amused. Huang Rong was really a cunning fox. She didn't offend either side and even clearly expressed her intentions. Zhou Zhuo cooperated and asked closely, "Since we have decided to retreat, why do we still have to fight a battle with the Tatars?" Looking at Zhou Zhuo's faint smile, Huang Rong couldn't help but think of her disheveled clothes and disheveled hair when she was rescued last night. She couldn't help but blush. Sect leader Zhou, you may not know this, but ever since the death of the former Golden Snake King, young Master Yuan, the Golden Snake Camp can be said to have suffered defeat after defeat against the Manchurian Imperial Army. Their morale has already fallen below a dangerous level. If we don't take advantage of the election of a new Golden Snake King and obtain a victory, I'm afraid that the Golden Snake Camp will only become bandits and roving bandits in hiding in the future. Hearing Huang Rong's words, the mountain leaders couldn't help but fall silent. They couldn't be more familiar with the internal situation of the Golden Snake Camp. During this period of time, there were subordinates fleeing every day. In the long run, the Golden Snake Camp would collapse from the inside, even without the imperial court's encirclement. Madame Guo is right. If we continue to choose to flee, I'm afraid that it won't be long before the Golden Snake Camp will only exist in name. That's right. The purpose of the Golden Snake Camp is to drive the Tartars out of the Han people's land. If we choose to flee every time we encounter the Qing army, then what's the point of the Golden Snake Camp's existence? Just now, when the mountain leaders of Song Qing's faction were arguing with Chu Honglu and the others, Jiao Wen'er of Jiangsu's Golden Dragon Gang, Ron Kai of Zhejiang's Roaming Dragon Gang, Nie Tianfeng of Huainan's Flying Tiger Valley Stockade, and Zheng Xiun of the 72 Island Alliance had remained neutral. At this moment, as if by prior agreement, they all spoke out in support of Huang Rong. Looking at the current situation, Song Qing revealed a faintly discernible smile. Fourth Lady, in your opinion, what should we do? Yang Miaojin snorted coldly. Before this, I thought that the Golden Snake Camp was full of resolute men. Now that I've seen it, it turns out that many of them are greedy for life and afraid of death. Chu Honglu, Meng Bofiai, and Sha Tongtian's faces turned red. They were about to open their mouths to refute, but Song Qing didn't give them the chance. He turned around and asked the leaders of Wu Dang, Amei, Tiandi Hui, and Mu Palace for their opinions. Zhang Songshi and Yin Lighting looked at each other and nodded their heads in support of the battle. The leader of Amei faction was Zhou Zhurua, so she wouldn't oppose it. Mu Palace and the Manchurian Qing were absolutely irreconcilable. They couldn't wait to fight to the death with the enemy, so naturally they would support the battle. Tiandi Hui's Qinjian also didn't want to see the Golden Snake Camp collapse, so he also expressed his support for the battle with the Manchurian Qing army. If that's the case, then we'll fight with the so-called 8 banners elites of the Manchurian Qing. Song Qing stood up, and an invisible pressure spread out in all directions. At this moment, how could everyone not understand Song Qing's true thoughts? Naturally, no one was so blind as to stand out and oppose it. Even Chu Honglu, Meng Bofiai, and the others had no choice but to accept this decision because the other forces had expressed their support. Chapter 503. Tu Hai is a famous Tatar general. He dares to go deep alone because he has 30,000 troops under his command. It's easier said than done for us to deal with him. Chu Honglu muttered in dissatisfaction. Although Chu Hongliu's voice was soft, everyone present was an expert. His words were heard clearly. Song Qingshu glanced at him and said indifferently, Tu Hai may have 30,000 troops, but in my opinion, he's just a chicken and a dog. It's easy to defeat him. Chu Honglu, Meng Bofiai, and Sha Tongtian almost sneered when they heard Song Qingshu's bold words. Although they didn't mock him, they couldn't hide the disdain on their faces. Not to mention them, even Huang Rong, Xiao Feng, and the others had strange expressions on their faces. In their initial plan, they planned to win a small battle to boost the morale of the Golden Snake Battalion. But from Song Qingshu's words, it seemed that he intended to swallow these 30,000 people in one go. This was too unrealistic. How many people do you need to annihilate Tu Hai's 30,000 men? Chu Honglu was afraid that Song Qingshu would suddenly change his mind, so she immediately cut off Song Qingshu's path of retreat. Who doesn't know how to talk big? If you can't destroy Tu Hai, let's see if you still have the face to be the Golden Snake King. Sha Tongtian and Meng Bofiai subconsciously looked at each other. They could see the schadenfreude in each other's eyes. This Song Qingshu was still young. To think that he couldn't keep his cool and allowed old Shu to grab hold of his weakness. I only need Lady, Madame Yuan, Old Hero Situ, Chief Shui, and Chief Chung, Song Qingshu said slowly. The mockery in Chu Hongliu's eyes deepened. There were less than 8,000 men in total. How could they win? But these few battalions could be regarded as hardcore supporters of Song Qingshu. Chu Honglu and the others couldn't wait to be exhausted by Song Qingshu in Tu Hai's hands. Is there anything else the other battalions can help with? Although Chu Honglu had decided not to do anything, he still had to show the proper attitude. Song Qingshu said with a serious expression, "There's indeed a very important mission here that needs to be handed over to a wise and courageous leader." Oh, seeing how serious he was, everyone in the hall became curious. I need a leader to lead our troops to guard Old Eagle Gully. Song Qingshu pointed at the map and continued. Once the Tu-Hai army collapses, this is where they will have to pass. This boss needs to ensure that not a single soldier of the Tu-Hai army escapes. Chu Honglu almost burst out laughing when he heard this. He hurriedly volunteered, "If the leader doesn't mind, leave this task to me." Tu-Hai was a famous general who had been through hundreds of battles and commanded 30,000 elite troops. How could he lose to Song Qingshu's mere 8,000 men? Wasn't this mission a free lunch? When the time comes, I just need to go through the motions and guarantee that I won't even see Tu-Hai Jun's shadow, and I can escape unscathed. Song Qingshu glanced at him and said in a cold tone, "This place is of great importance. Can Villa Master Chu guarantee that you can wipe out Tu-Hai's army in one fell swoop?" Chu Honglu said with a fake smile, "Hee, as long as the leader has the ability to defeat Tu-Hai's army, I can naturally wipe them all out. Whether or not we can wipe out Tu-Hai's army is related to the success or failure of the entire war. Do you dare to make a military pledge, Villa Master Chu?" Song Qingshu suddenly stood up and stared at Chu Honglu. Chu Honglu was shocked. Why did he feel that Song Qingshu had dug a pit for him to jump into? However, he was the leader of a battalion. How could he be so easily scared by a few words? Chu Honglu braced himself and said, "Okay, I will make a military pledge. If the leader really defeats Tu-Hai's army, I will definitely leave them all in Old Eagle Gully. If I can't do that, you can do whatever you want of me." Humph. I don't believe that your 8,000 men can defeat 30,000 men. However, Chu Honglu was not stupid. Although he agreed, he insisted on the premise that Song Qingshu must defeat Tu-Hai's army. As long as Song Qingshu could not do that, he would have a reason to shirk the responsibility. But it was a pipe dream to think that 8,000 bandits could defeat the 30,000 elite soldiers led by General Tu-Hai. Okay, Song Qingshu nodded and began to assign tasks to the other leaders. Jiao Weiner of Jiangsu's Golden Dragon Gang, Ron Kai of Zhejiang's Roaming Dragon Gang, Nie Tianfeng of Huainan's Flying Tiger Valley, and Zheng Qian of the 72-Island Alliance were all neutral figures. Song Qingshu assigned them to lead their troops to harass the other three armies of the Manchurian Qing. The four leaders looked at each other and communicated their thoughts with their eyes. Although they were more inclined towards Song Qingshu on the surface, they were still neutral deep down. If Song Qingshu wanted to use their troops to fight Tu-Hai, they would definitely not be willing to do so. They could still accept it if it was just to delay the Qing army's march. After all, it was just delaying and harassing them. Even if they were injured, it would not be a serious blow. They could also take the opportunity to observe. Once Song Qingshu's main force was defeated, they could take the opportunity to escape into the mountains and find a place to occupy. Their strength would not be reduced at all. If Song Qingshu's main force really defeated Tu-Hai's army, they could also report the credit of this task and be rewarded according to their contributions after the event. Of course, this situation was impossible in the eyes of the four leaders. Therefore, the four of them gladly accepted this task. As for Meng Bofiai and Sha Tongtian, Song Qingshu asked them to lead their troops to stay in the headquarters and wait for further orders. Seeing that they did not have to do anything, the two of them were naturally happy to watch the show. After the leaders received their tasks and left, Song Qingshu said to Yang Miaozhen, Tian Di Hui, and Mu Palace's people, Fourth Lady, Zhe Chun, Young Duke Mu, "There's something I need to trouble you with." Before leaving, Yang Miaozhen took a deep look at Song Qingshu and said, "So you were serious when you said you wanted to destroy Tu-Hai's army?" Song Qingshu smiled and said, "I've always been a serious man. I hope you won't let me down." Yang Miaozhen did not ask about Song Qingshu's specific plan. She left after leaving these words. After some arrangements, only Song Qingshu, Zhou Zhao, the women, the two heroes of the Wu-Tang sect, and Xiao Feng were left in the hall. I wonder how Prince Song plans to defeat Tu-Hai's army of 30,000. Seeing that almost everyone had left, Huang Rong could not help but ask. Madame Guo has always been known as the female Zhuge Liang. I wonder what good plan you have. Song Qingshu smiled and did not answer. Instead, he asked a question. The enemy is outnumbered. I'm afraid there's only one way to win. Ever since Song Qingshu announced that he wanted to destroy Tu Hai's army of 30,000, Huang Rong had been thinking about how to do it. Now, she vaguely had an idea. I've also thought of a way. Xiao Feng, who had been silent all this while coldly watching the people of the Golden Snake camp fighting against each other. Now he laughed loudly. Song Qingshu smiled and said, "In that case, let's follow the example of the sages of the three kingdoms and write our own plans on our palms. Let's see if we can think of the same thing." Chapter 504. After the three of them finished writing, everyone in the hall craned their necks to look, wanting to see what the three of them had come up with. Plus or minus, they saw the words fire attack, written on Huang Rong's white palm, night attack, written on Xiao Feng's palm, and blowing up the camp, written on Song Qingshu's palm. It seems that everyone is thinking of the same thing. Song Qingshu laughed. Although the writing is different, it is actually the same thing. Huang Rong smiled. Golden Snake Battalion has few people. Tu Hai has many people. We know this. Tu Hai also knows this, but the Tatar soldiers may not know this. As long as we can reasonably use the cover of the night to make the ordinary Tatar soldiers think that they are surrounded by enemies and fall into confusion, we will have succeeded more than half. Yes, Xiao Feng nodded. Just like what Madame was said, night attack must be accompanied by burning the army supplies, creating a more chaotic scene. Once we succeed in causing the Qing army to blow up the camp, the 30,000 eight banners elites are just lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Many of the people in the hall did not understand military affairs, but listening to the three people talking one after another, as if they had the pearl of wisdom in their hands, their confidence was greatly boosted. Only one person was frowning. Chen Jinan, if you have something to say, please say it. Song Qingshu was in the position of the Golden Snake King, so he could see everything in the hall. Naturally, he saw Chen Jinan's hesitant expression. Please forgive me for pouring cold water on you. I've dealt with Tu Hai. This person is definitely the #1 general of the Qing court. He has always been strict in managing his troops. Every time he sets up camp, he will arrange a large number of scouts to monitor the movement within a radius of dozens of li. Once there is any movement in the surroundings, he will immediately receive the news. I am afraid that night attack will be very difficult to succeed. And even if we succeed in breaking into the Tatar camp, as long as Tu Hai is in command, the 38 banners troops will absolutely not blow up the camp. Chen Jinan frowned. Just now, the idea that Song Qingshu and the other two people came up with was indeed very likely to succeed if it was used to deal with an ordinary good-for-nothing general. But Tu Hai was a veteran of hundreds of battles. That year, Li Chuang's troops that swept the world were completely defeated by him. How could he not guard against an ordinary night attack? Song Qingshu seemed to have expected that someone would have this kind of doubt. Upon hearing this, he smiled and said, "What Headmaster Chen said makes sense, but all of this is based on the situation where Tu Hai is overseeing the middle army. What if Tu Hai dies?" Chen Jinan was startled and said subconsciously, "Could it be that Prince Song wants to assassinate Tu Hai? Although Prince Song's kung fu is high, if he wants to take the head of a general among thousands of soldiers, I'm afraid." Chen Jinan didn't finish his sentence, but everyone knew what he meant. After all, taking the head of a general from an army of 10,000 was quite shocking. There were only a few people who had accomplished this feat in history. Xiao Feng was famous for slaughtering his way into the chaotic army and capturing the Southern Yard King, Yelu Zhongyuan. However, the bigger reason for that was because Yelu Zhongyuan had courted his own death, thinking that victory was already set in stone, so he swaggered to the front of Xiao Feng's army, giving Xiao Feng a chance. Even if all the grandmasters in the world worked together, it would still be impossible to kill their commander, Tu Hai, amidst an army of 30,000. Headmaster Chen, you can rest assured. I have my own ways to kill Tu Hai. Song Qingshu secretly sighed in his heart. Ever since he came to this wonderful world, perhaps because of the values of his previous life, he couldn't treat human life as worthless, so he had always avoided killing people. Unfortunately, he wasn't Bandit Marshal Chu Liuxiang, so there would always be a time when he had no choice but to kill. Song Qing-shu recalled the people he had killed. In fact, none of them had any grievances with him, but unfortunately, the Ji and Lan were in the way, so he had no choice but to eliminate them. This Tu Hai was the same. In the past, when Song Qing-shu was still in the Qing court, he had also met this old general a few times. He was a general worthy of respect, but unfortunately, the two of them had different standpoints and were destined to be unable to walk together. "You are really hypocritical," Song Qing-shu silently said to himself. If he wanted to kill someone, he still had to find so many excuses. If this wasn't hypocritical, then what was? However, compared to a real person, it was better for him to be a hypocrite. At least he had his own principles. Hearing that Song Qing-shu had a way to kill Tu Hai, everyone in the hall couldn't help but be shocked. However, Song Qing-shu didn't say a word after that. Obviously, he didn't intend to reveal his method of killing Tu Hai. Everyone began to whisper to each other and began to speculate. Xiao Feng looked at Song Qing-shu thoughtfully. In the current situation, he didn't have the ability to kill Tu Hai while surrounded by 30,000 soldiers, so he didn't know how Song Qing-shu planned to do it. Huang Rong's pair of beautiful eyes were also full of extraordinary splendor. She was also very curious. I wonder if I ask him in private, will he tell me? Huang Rong was startled by the sudden thought. Why would she think like that? Fortunately, the people in the hall were all outstanding people. They understood that if the method of assassinating the enemy's commander was made known to everyone, it would probably not be far from failure. Therefore, although Song Qing-shu didn't know, everyone tacitly didn't have the intention to press him. First, the people in the hall had a good relationship with Song Qing-shu. Second, Song Qing-shu's magical performance in the Golden Snake Convention had won everyone's approval. Since Song Qing-shu dared to say that he could take Tu Hai's life, these people naturally dared to believe him. But there is still a problem, Chun Jinan said. To succeed in a night attack, it must be unexpected. The Qing army often sends a large number of scouts to sweep the area within a radius of dozens of miles. I'm afraid that the Golden Snake Battalion will be exposed before they can get close to the enemy's camp. Xiao Feng deeply agreed. In the hall, he was probably the one who had the most contact with the Qing army. He naturally understood that Chun Jinan's worry was not without reason. To succeed in a night attack was indeed as difficult as ascending to heaven. Song Qing-shu smiled slightly. Everyone here should have heard of the principle that it is dark under the lamp. The Manchurian scouts' attention is mainly on the outside dozens of miles away. As long as we set up an ambush near their camp in advance, it is possible to deceive them. How is this possible? Chun Jinan cried out in surprise. Even Xiao Feng secretly frowned. After all, the location of the camp was the most important thing for an army to do. It was considered by the commander of the army according to the speed of the march, the terrain, the combat mission, and other factors. Sometimes, even the commander himself might not know where to set up camp. Tu Hai will definitely set up camp here at Fox Slope tomorrow. This place is the burial place of the Tatar soldiers. Song Qing-shu pointed to a position on the sand table and said confidently, "What a joke. The emperor of the Qing dynasty was one of them." If he didn't even know where Tu Hai set up camp, Song Qing-shu felt that he should kill himself. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.